Murphy. Hey, Chris, how are you? You okay? You okay? Sore? Yeah. Perfect. Hey, Bill. Good to see you, man. Yes. Yeah, yeah. We have no pizza. Uh, oh, really? Just one quick procedural announcement. The Board of License Commissioners matter, which is something Persephone's done before, basically those for those Dodge Street nights. Um, she is on the ferry, which left Bill McComb 15 minutes late. Uh, so, so we will be we'll be taking that up later to give her time to get here. So I'll just convene the town council. It is today is Wednesday, July 17th. It is 7:01 p.m. And instead of starting with the Board of License Commissioners, we will start with public comment as we traditionally do. Is there any public comment? Please come, Chris. Chris, Jennifer, did you? Yep, yep. And then Cindy. How are you,
Chris,
Chris? Good to see you.
good evening. Chris Warfel, Ebbets Hollow, Block Island. I am following up with my earlier public comment and conversations with the town regarding the Corn Neck Road dune restoration project. I did send an email with quite a few questions to the town manager. She deflected those to Mike Shea, Superintendent of Highways, I believe. This is his new title. I will just say that the responses from the town of Shoreham, I think, require that the town council agenda an item to understand how the town manager and highways operates. The information that I received from Mike Shea on the project had a lot of factual errors in it. In addition, according to Mike Shea and the town manager, actually Mike Shea referring to the town manager, there were no conversations with the Department of Transportation on that project, which seems incredulous. I'm incredulous about. How does the town of Shoreham not have a relationship with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation such that a permitted project, which is on file at CRMC, I found, is the town expresses ignorance about? The impetus of my inquiry originally was regarding why does the town not use jute fencing? It has been 13 years since this information was given to the town, 13 years. I expected a process. I worked through a process to basically demonstrate to the town that this is effective, and the town had such an incorrect understanding of the project. It was mind-numbing. They thought this project contained metal, nails, wire, was dangerous, showing that they absolutely never read any of the information that was given to them in all this time.
Thank you, by the way, for sending us that.
I'm sorry it was late.
No, it's totally okay, but it was very helpful.
So that over 13 years, that information is given to the town with demonstrations showing that it was effective. I'm just going to highlight quickly, because I realize there's a lot of things going on here tonight, what was disturbing. The dunes were referred to as man-made. They're not man-made. How do you use sand to correct a problem if the location does not collect sand? It was said that it doesn't collect sand by the town. And it also seems very odd to me that our town manager had no indication of this project on Corn Neck, and it begs the question, why? We need people who establish a better working relationship with the state in many areas. What has either of these people done, that's Mike Shea and Marianne Crawford, done to proactively achieve that, and how? It was also said that this work was labor intensive, and that I want to know how that they came to that conclusion. I did the work. One person. I did this work. And in addition, as I said earlier, there's a glaring mistake or misunderstanding. We devised jute fencing for exactly the reason that's stated here. There is no metal or wooden debris. So again, the town shows no understanding of what they're talking about. I contend that the sand that was placed on Corn Neck is blowing into Chimps Pond and Harbor Pond. Because I was told that, I don't know if that's happening or even possible. I'm sure all of you that live on this island have driven down Corn Neck Road, and you're aware of the number of times the town has scraped sand off Corn Neck Road since it was placed on the dunes. Where does the town, CRMC, and DEM think the rest of this is going? I've worked in that area for 23 years, have informed the town repeatedly of this, even wrote a federal grant application to address ways to mitigate this and bring back native species to these ponds. I want to know how beach grass got there. Well, it turns out the Nature Conservancy did it. Why was the Nature Conservancy allowed to do this without, did they have a permit? Why didn't they use something that was shown, demonstrated with the power of observation to be more effective? That's because Nature Conservancy places beach grass. But I'm telling you, this is not a biology class. This is an engineered effort using taxpayer dollars. It is unfortunate that our town manager appeared to be AWOL in this matter, and that there's a lack of communication with the state. I would like the town council to direct the town manager to correct this situation. I appreciate everyone's work, but the responses I received on this indicate a very bad understanding of the effort made over many years to work through a process. And I'm going to say this again, a process which the town did not work through with us or anybody here to figure out what was best for this island. The fact that once again, the town has feigned ignorance is not going over well. It's actually infuriating to work so long on this and be faced with so much incorrect understanding or lack of homework or research. I would like the town council to consider directing the town manager to start ameliorating this situation by seeking out and obtaining grants to start restoring the inner ponds. I told you that I had submitted a grant to Ed Roberge. That should be in the records. That grant was to establish a baseline for our native flora and fauna in the ponds and to reestablish what we've lost. The town manager needs to get working on that because after 23 years, I've seen those ponds deteriorate. We've lost eelgrass, we've lost scallops, we've lost flounder. And you know, it seems not to be important. What's more important is tourism. And we're losing our natural habitat here because there's a lack of attention to this. So that's my comments, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Phillips.
Hey, Jennifer, will you make sure your green light is on?
My green light is on.
Excellent.
I'm here as a member of the Senior Advisory Council tonight.
Yes.
Last month, you hired a new person for the Human Resource Director, I believe, which the Senior Advisory works under. So we were glad to have that position filled. But at that time, I also asked about advertising for the coordinator for the Senior Advisory. And since then, it's been on BI Bulletin. And I think that is all that it's been, how it's been advertised. All of our momentum, all of our programs that we've gotten in place and worked really hard they're all losing momentum. They're all falling apart. We are feeling really discouraged. We did a lot of work and then we were put underneath the town and now nothing is happening. So just here as a member to say, please, again, can you advertise for this position and can you help us take care of that demographic?
Terrific. Thank you. Cindy Lasser.
My son. Hi, everybody. I do have a quick little handout just because I'm talking about a chart, so. I know you can't see.
Yeah.
I'm just here to talk about.
I can say your name and address.
Cindy Lasser, Old Town Road. I'm here to talk about the noise issue in town. And just want to say that the business district is just way too loud all the time. We have the outdoor entertainment licenses are just being handed out constantly. No offense to you. I know you're coming for window, but yeah, this or anything. But I mean, some are, I mean, for instance, the bottom of Calico Hill, there's a rock band every Sunday night that is drums, couple singers, keyboard, bass. I don't think that's what the,
Cindy,
excuse me.
you said drums?
Mhm.
Okay, I thought you said drunks and then I thought, no, she said drums. Just want to be sure.
That's the comment of the year.
Drums. But I'm just wondering what happened to acoustic and more than that, I mean, and rock music is fine or whatever kind of music is around, but can it just be lower? Why does it have to be so loud? Does it have to be so loud that everyone can hear it in this perimeter or just on their property? People will still come, people will still enjoy the music. I don't begrudge anyone the right to make money. Just turn the volume down. We've called the police as neighbors. We have Matt Moran and his new noise meter, which is great. Neighbors have signed many, many letters. The readings on my porch, which if people don't know, I live on Calico Hill, are generally 45 to 55 with spikes higher and higher upstairs in my house. The numbers that come from Matt are similar, not the same, not quite the same. Mine are a little higher than his. I use the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health app, which is it's a great app. I am located in the RC zone mixed use, which you'll see on your chart. The RC mixed use decibel level between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. is 65 decibels. Between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. it's 55. The next zone over from me, which is like from here to the cars out there, is the RC mix, is the Old Harbor Commercial decibel. The Old Harbor Commercial, the decibel level there from 7 a.m. to midnight is 70. It should drop down to 65 after 12 o'clock. I don't know if it is or isn't. I'm curious about the whole noise ordinance. That table is embedded in the noise ordinance. The noise ordinance was written 20 years ago in 2005. We've had numerous changes on Block Island in that amount of time. The numbers don't work anymore. The noise is too high. I met with Jen Brady because I thought because it's in zones, it's broken up in zones. I thought it was a zoning issue. It's not a zoning issue. It's just zones that were made. And it turns out that it's a police issue, that the police create the graph with the zones. So I did reach out to Officer Dean. I didn't hear from him, but I don't expect to really, because I don't think there's anyone busier on Block Island. And I don't blame him at all. Did happen to reach out to Bill McConnell, who happens to be sitting there. And I was just wondering, like, when this was written, when did this table come into being? And Billy said that he started in the police department in 1989, and that was the table they were using. So if we're using that table from 1989, it's now 35 years old, and who knows when Paul Riker did it. So I think it's a really time to take a serious look at the entire noise ordinance. And again, as I've said to you every time I'm here, I'm happy to participate in any way that I can.
Terrific. Thank you,
Good.
Cindy.
Thank you.
I guess clarification. I'm pretty sure the first date you had was right because I'm pretty sure the noise ordinance was redone after I got off the council. I'm trying to disavow any responsibility for this. The 89 was a zoning ordinance. but we need to look that up.
Yeah, when I looked the last time we had the noise concerns in Matt Moran and we changed the approach, it was 2005, which is a long time.
But I was not on the I was not on the council. That's the only thing I'm really trying to make the point here.
Any other public comment before we move on?
I just want to say something really quick. So recently we lost another really well-respected Islander who spent a lot of time giving back to the community. And I just want to recognize Wade Ortel. I worked with Wade on the Library Board of Trustees back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Wade was the chairman of that board at the time for a number of years and did a beautiful job. At the time that I served with him, we made a lot of changes to the library to accommodate the ADA, which had just been passed. And so I just wanted to recognize the service that he provided to the town and, offer condolences to his family, to Jim and Marion and Brooke and Wade. Thanks.
Thank you very much for.
And I think that we'd be remiss, at least David and I would be remiss in not noting, I thought we did this already, that Wade was the doctor who came after we hadn't had a doctor for a winter. We had somebody who came over from Newport once a week, I think it was, a Navy doctor. And they pulled in on the Quonset into the New Harbor on a drizzly September day just before school began. And I think even as kids, we felt the collective sigh of relief that we finally had a doctor who'd come all the way from north of the Arctic Circle to Block Island.
Sure, David.
David Lewis, Conomus Road. Just to echo what Martha said with different words, Wayne was also a man of character and courage. They spoke for themselves, and he was one of the defining influences of Block Island's early years when growth was just beginning to happen. I still have the clearest vision of him having a little two-person Jeep with a red light on the top when he would leave wherever he was and go with the rescue squad to rescue calls. Those were the days in the past. Obviously, those are memories that we don't want to necessarily relive today. We have adequate staff today to handle those emergencies, but those are the things, some of those images of early Block Island never leave you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Moving on to our consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We have 3 public hearing dates.
Persephone came in.
Okay. I didn't see that. Oh, hello, Persephone. Yeah, Bill McCombs fault. We already established that. All right, why don't we take a break and can I have a motion to convene the Board of License Commissioners, please? Second, all those in favor? We're now sitting as the Board of License Commissioners with an application before us for 4 F1 licenses for Persephone's Kitchen, July 18th, 25th, August 1st, and 8th, 2024, from 6 to 9. This would be at 235 Dodge Street, Plat 6, Lot 132. Go ahead, Persephone.
I don't know what you want from me besides the information that you have before you. I'm requesting those 4 licenses as you granted summer. I know last year it was on a trial basis
Yes.
for the first dessert night, and it went very well. It's a very low key, I'd like to say family friendly event where I wanted to offer mocktail menu, but because we do have espresso, in addition, add an espresso martini. And I thought it was a really nice way to enjoy the environment for both adults and kids.
I will say that I thought the approach that we took, was it last year or the year before?
It was last
It was
year.
last
Yeah.
year. I thought was a good one, which is we approve them, I think, basically one at a time or two at a time. So, something along those lines so that we could get a sense of whether it was going to work or not. I didn't receive any complaints. I don't know whether anybody else did. I think
So Persephone, were there any issues related? Normally, with these types of things, we have asked the police chief and he's, said no, but do you have any incidents that
It's a
occurred?
very low-key
Okay.
event to begin with, so no, and we close at 9 PM. And I don't think we ever served anyone more than 2 drinks in a night.
terrific.
And then Millie, when is the next meeting scheduled for? Yeah, so that would be too late to. I actually do like the idea of breaking them up because if there's an issue, then we haven't gone that far. But August 5th would then put us outside the window for approval. So,
Did we approve the first few?
yeah, I think we approved the first ones, then we met again and we approved the next bunch. What I'm saying is we can't take that approach this year because our next meeting is August 5th, which would mean we wouldn't be if we broke them up into 2, August 5th would eliminate approval for her August 1st, is my point.
But we can rescind a license, right? I mean, if things get crazy over at Persephone's.
Show cause and-
Well, there is the final one, August 8th. So I suppose if you wanted to revisit this on August 5th and decide if the August 8th one could go forward. I'm not suggesting I run your meeting, but
You're only going to August 8th?
August 8th is the last license I've asked for, yeah.
Yeah, I suggested that the 2-step last year only because it was an entirely new venture. And I think it's proven. And since it's only going to August 8th, I don't think it's necessary to.
I mean, I'm comfortable approving them all. The only thing I would ask is if you could not use the term pop-up. That was something last year that during the presentation that was used, and then recently in a different liquor meeting, we had someone using that term and
It's my establishment and I'm
Yeah.
serving, so it's not a pop-up at all.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think pop-up is an appropriate terminology for liquor when you've like come to ask for a license and you've been
Mhm.
granted a license. It's pop-up is like, I'm gonna sell some zinnias at the end of my driveway, So like, not, I'm gonna serve cocktails.
Are you,
Right.
are you selling zinnias at the end of your driveway?
No, not yet.
Can I have a motion to approve these 4 F1 licenses, July 18th, 25th, August 1st and 8th for Persephone's Kitchen? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Can I have a motion to adjourn the Board of License Commissioners? Second? All
Thank
those
you.
in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Now we are on to, thank you, Persephone.
Thank you.
Don't be late again or.
And if you are, talk to Bill about it.
We have 3 public hearing dates to set. The first is a date for the New Shoreham zoning ordinance amusement ride definition. You'll recall that we raised this several weeks ago because the definition is insufficient, and this was actually at the advice of council, if I recall correctly. We sent it pursuant to the process to planning. If I recall correctly, planning sent it back to us with their unanimous recommendation. Now we have to have a public hearing. What's the date for that? August 21st. Can I have a motion to set the?
Before we
Yeah,
go there,
sure.
so I don't want to go into litigation on this again. So I just would like to understand. So Aldo's will receive a grandfathering
Yeah.
if we change the
Yeah,
language?
this was
Great,
a
Thank you.
prospective definition.
great, thank you.
That's my understanding, Neil. So August,
Millie, is that accurate?
can I have a motion for that?
Motion to set the hearing for the amusement park rides on the 21st.
Second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The second one is really a housekeeping ordinance. Millie knows more about it than I do, but it is non-substantive as I understand it. Is that correct? Can I have a motion to set that one for August 21st as well?
Motion to set the fire prevention article, fire alarms for what date?
August 21st.
21st.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 6 is an update. This was bound to happen because if you recall, for those of you who are regulars, state law totally changed basically virtually all the zoning laws. And we had to comply with these packages of ordinances that were, some of them were 30 pages long, if I recall correctly. And we inadvertently either deleted or misworded a section of our ordinances regarding MFEs. And we have to, this is basically to reinstate what the ordinance was before. It's something I missed. I think it's something all of us missed, so we need to fix it. That too will be on August 21st. Can I have a motion to set that public hearing for the 21st? Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That'll be on the 21st. And now we come to item number 7, holding a public hearing on proposed amendment regarding short-term rentals. Who would like to go first? Mary, come up. Oh, yeah. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing? Sorry, Mary, just wait
I'll
one
make the
second.
motion to open the public hearing.
Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Come up, Mary. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak, ladies and gentlemen. Since the beginning of the introduction of the proposed short-term rental ordinance, there's been hundreds of letters opposing it as an overreaching solution to the problem not proving to exist. Many reasons have been stated by the town council as to why the ordinance must be passed. Without one statement of evidence, it's needed. Many speakers in the last 3 town council meetings having to do with this short-term rental ordinance have asked the town council to answer the question, why is it so urgent that this has to be voted on without stakeholder input, such as a committee to investigate? It's been stated that the town has already the ability to regulate septic tank issues. We do have inspections that are required. Noise issues, we do have competent police department. And zoning compliance, we have a land use office that does take care of that. If the real goal is just knowing who owns what rental home, as expressed in the meeting in January, then a simple database can be compiled through registration, such as the state does, with an owner's contact information and the information on who to contact in the event the owner is absent during the rental season or any other time of year. This answer to who do we contact and how do we contact would be answered, which then helps solve whatever issue it is that the owner needs to be addressed. And a registration fee commensurate to the level of this registration, being between $25 and $50, seems to be what is warranted, would be such a fee that homeowners would be happy to register because it's a safeguard in case there's an emergency at their home. They would like to know that they could be contacted sufficiently in short order if there happens to be a fire or some other incident at their house. Therefore, I respectfully ask the town council to pause here, to listen to your public you represent, review and reduce the ordinances to be a roster of sorts of rental homes. Come back to your public with a more reasonable version we all can discuss when more stakeholders are available. Many, of course, are off island now because their homes are rented. Then in the future, perhaps we could form a committee and try to investigate if there are any real issues caused by vacationing guests and the places they stay. Or are there more pluses or minuses in this single enterprise that has been signaled out? The enterprise that supports our island community, as supported by the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations. Please, if we gather our heads together, could we please find the real issues that need a solution? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary. Anybody else? Who'd like to go? Sharon?
I'm just going to quickly add something here.
Sure.
So I keep hearing the word stakeholder, right? And I'm just going to tell you what I think a stakeholder here is, right? Because I think we have a different interpretation. This is a very, very broad community. We have so many different categories of people in this community that maybe exist in smaller proportions in other communities, but we have year-round residents, part-time residents, homeowners, taxpayers, we have renters, we have people who do the shuffle every year and they move from a boat to a house to sometimes their car. All of these people are stakeholders in our community. All of these people care about our community. They volunteer in our community. They support organizations within the community. So when I hear that the word stakeholder is being, that stake is being put in the ground for one very small group, I'm just going to tell you that's falling on deaf ears with me, because you guys, every single person in this room, no matter what topic you came here for, you're a stakeholder in this agenda item, but you're also a stakeholder in every other item on this agenda. And if you really feel like you're a stakeholder, then you'll stick around for item number 15 and maybe join a commission or a board. So I just want you to keep that in mind. We all belong to this community. There's no us and them. It's not part-time versus full-time or islanders versus, it doesn't matter. If you feel like you belong here, then you belong here. So I just want to make that clear, because I feel like the word stakeholder is being used territorially and incorrectly. Thanks.
Well said, Molly.
Go ahead, Sharon.
So I prepared remarks and I didn't send a letter to Millie because I
Sharon,
felt
you
like,
just say your.
oh, sorry, my name is Sharon Tavilla. And so I'm not even going to use the word stakeholder, and it wasn't even in my remarks. So, and I am actually a new Rhode Island resident of Block Island as of about 3 months ago. So maybe I will join a board or a commission. It's very new to me.
We'd love to have you.
So honestly, I felt like this was an act of futility to even get up here today. And I actually changed my plans. I actually rented a room at 1661 for 2 nights to stay here and participate in this, because that is also being a stakeholder, is participating in town government. But I wrote these remarks, and this is how I feel. So I think that this ordinance is discriminatory against homeowners who rent on a short-term basis. I think the town council has given anecdotal reasons as presented and presented them as facts to support this ordinance. But that can these stories can easily apply to both owners who rent and homeowners who don't rent, but have large families and a revolving door of people in their house. They just don't take money for it, but they have visitors, they have family. I have a house behind me who has a large family. Some days they rent, but most of the time it's family, and they're noisier than any of my guests ever are. It's just an example. But I feel like the short-term rental homeowner is being discriminated against. And I think we as landlords for short-term rentals are low-hanging fruit for additional revenue source. And frankly, we're almost like a scapegoat, like you're blaming us for a lot of problems on this island. And I think there's a lot of other problems like the noise. I mean, you can hear what goes on at Spring Street and music when you're, down at Rebecca's statue, and it's loud and it's obnoxious, and it has nothing to do with short-term rental. So I think that this short-term rental, because it's happening all over the United States and many states, that we're easy picking for the town council for money, for to establish some kind of control. What's really worse, and I said this in other comments, is I think this is really discriminating against the middle class owners on this island. So I've listened and talked to several of my peers who, like me, bought their house. I bought my house 10 years ago. I bought it knowing I had to rent it out to meet my mortgage and expenses. I don't make lots of money off of it. But I think the middle class homeowner on this island is actually who gives Block Island its character. Without us, we're not as pretentious as places like Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket and Hamptons. And I've listened to and spoke to several people in this room and some people who couldn't be here who shared with me in really heartbreaking ways that they could have to sell their home, that they might not be able to do it if they're constrained. And I feel like there's a framework being put in place that is really going to hurt a lot of these middle class homeowners. And I feel like we're under attack. And really it's starting to crumble the middle class of the island. And we could be accelerating to move to a 2-class island. Because a lot of people in this room, we're the middle class. I can't afford my house without renting. So I have some suggestions. I didn't come here just to reiterate problems and things like that. I think one of the problems is that's going to really hurt people's revenue is by arbitrarily indicating what a bedroom is and limiting the size. My suggestion is to be more thoughtful about this. Molly just said, this is a small group of people. You have a finite number of registrations. Let people self-declare what they think their occupancy. A group of us, I'd be absolutely willing to do that. We can go out on vision appraisal. We can look at what that house is supposed to have. I think some of the real estate people in the room, you can see. And anyone that doesn't agree or something that sounds out of whack, you can investigate and find out more about it. So don't arbitrarily say, I have a sleeping loft. I have a sleeping loft that sleeps 4 people very comfortably. It's enormous. There's not a door. So by the way this is written, you're telling me I can't offer those 4 beds for rent. That changes the dynamics of my house. So I would say, have people self-declare what they think their occupancies should be and then validate that. If it doesn't make sense, you're also going to uncover some people who might be your problem renters. The second place where I really think you're hitting those of us in our pockets is with fees and possible fines. And I would suggest consider postponing the fines. You've established a fee. My understanding it's $250. I think it's high, but whatever. but consider postponing fines until we have some experience with this ordinance. And for all of us, for those of us who are renting, for you as the town council. So don't implement fees until we really see what's going on here. Do your fees, but don't implement fines. Third, you are hitting our revenue and you're forcing us to have an on-island property manager, where many of us have a process in place, right? They have an electrician, they have a handyman, they have whoever. So if they receive a call and they're not on the island, they know exactly who they're going to call. I happen to have a co-host who I work with. They're expensive. I pay them. They're very thorough, but we have a very established process. I also have a very established process with my cleaner. I pay for that, and that does impact my revenue. But some people who haven't done that before, that's going to be a big hit. And yet, what is the real thing you're trying to solve? Why does somebody have to be here when you could, there could be reasonable solutions to problems without having the person on the island? So it's something to think about. Those are 3 changes that you could make that could change the tenor of this, but still start with an ordinance, with a registration, with a fee, with the obligation to communicate about dogs and all those things. I think those are valid. That's fine. I'll close this by saying that we have tried to find facts. We've tried to be thorough. And not the stakeholders, but those of us who are interested in this. And I think that if we take a more measured approach to implementing this, we can start to collect those facts. And instead of, blaming a group, which this really does feel like, we can collect data that we can analyze and make more intelligent choices going forward. So my suggestion is to implement the registration database, the fee, posting of information, and a 24/7 contact, not necessarily on the island, but eliminate the bedroom language, the fines, and the forced on-island property management, and test this effort and measure whether or not this addresses the issues that you feel have that short-term rentals presents. So thank you. I am an owner. I'm now a Rhode Island resident, and I appreciate all the dialogue. Have a good night.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Miller, West Side Road. And I'm a stakeholder. I've been to Neil's Inn. It was a beautiful place. I've been in a burning building with Tristan when I was on the fire department. I've taken Keith fishing. I see, I'm sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a Lyme disease cognitive function moment. Martha in church both Sundays. I was on the rescue squad with Molly's husband for a number of years. And I came here tonight just very angry and intractably opposed to the short-term rental ordinance. And I was very much mollified by listening to Sharon. And part of my anger is just that, in my view, the entire process has been procedurally flawed in that there was never a subcommittee formed. And though citizens begged to have a subcommittee formed, it just fell on deaf ears. And if that were to happen, I'd be a lot more likely to not spend my money fighting you with my tax dollars on it, or organize a resistance, or stop paying the 1% tax. I see houses just jammed with people. And I know the owners, and I know that they're not rented because the owner's there. And we never do that. And we limit our minister's lot house to 6 people, because though it's a 4-bedroom house, it has a 3-bedroom septic. So the idea that that enforcement is not being done by the town, which is the town's job, but you would like to charge me, and $250 to me, it's a little bit of money. I don't anticipate being able to retire on Block Island. I don't have enough money. I have to sell I'm not going to be able to stay and retire. And I'm like, I'm pretty old. So I beg you to just hold your damn horses and let other people have some input into it, because together, I think we could have something that we could all agree on, instead of having people like me come here and all angry and hot-headed. I don't like how I feel, but you know, to be perfectly honest, I'm angry at the way this is unfolded. I just have a feeling that, you know, all the words have had little effect. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
So I just want to make a comment that being heard, being listened to is a little bit of a misnomer. This ordinance was 6 pages. How many pages is it now? 3.5. There were iterations. How many iterations? 14 iterations. How long has this been going on? About a year. There has been ample feedback. Molly and Keith, I applaud them for what they've done. And listen, they've made changes. Everything is incorporated. But the difference is hearing and doing what you want are 2 different things. So when you say you haven't been heard, you have been heard. The decision was made to move in a different direction. So not listening is not what these 2 are doing. I have to disagree with that. I was really bothered by the way the people spoke at the last meeting. And I want to share with you, I don't know if he's in the room. I don't know who he is. I had a gentleman call me, scream, curse, be completely disrespectful on this topic. We are not paid, we don't get paid for this role enough for what we do. We got a stipend, right? Disrespect is not going to be allowed going forward. So I'm concerned that this will continue. I hung up on the gentleman, right? The next person who called, I had to do a caveat of, if you are disrespectful, if you curse at me, I will hang up and I will have no further discussions on any topic. Okay. So this misnomer of we haven't listened is a lie. 14 iterations. Okay. 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 Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the other, okay, you have to be up here. So the other thing is, we are all reachable. I have had people knock at the door at the Old Town Inn on multiple topics. They come in, we sit down, we talk about the topic. It gives me intel. I share it with others. Not one of you have come to see me. I understand he's running a business. I don't want to bother him. This has gone on for a year and not one person has come to have a conversation with me. When people come to the inn, if I am too busy, I say, I can't talk to you right now. Let's schedule time. But to say we're unapproachable is a complete lie. And again, bothered by the I'm not saying you, the group. Block Island has a bully mentality, and that's what's going on here. I will use conversations with individuals who called me to talk to me. I've talked to now probably 20 of you. The first conversation, the person said, my realtor told me to put an extra bed in the room because we could make more money. I'm not going to say who that is, but I know who it is. So when we talk about ethics, we need to be careful that we actually act ethical. The other comment I would say is, look who's in the room. We have realtors who support this, and we have gotten an increased number of people from the community who don't want to be bullied, who are now writing letters saying, we support this. We are year-round residents. We're voters. We want this to happen. We think you guys have listened. Enough's enough. This iteration is good. Half the time, excuse me, can you give me, you need to go up here.
Steve,
Half-
you need to talk from a microphone if you're going to jump in.
Half the time.
Are you confident enough in that? to
Excuse
put
me,
it-
sir.
to Put it to
Sir,
a public
I-
vote? It's a yes or no question.
Hey, Steve.
Half the time, the people who've come haven't even read the latest iteration of the document. Keith was kind enough to have people talk about it And we spent circles on stuff in our last iteration because it wasn't even the current document that people had reviewed. They were talking about things that were no longer there. So when you say you were frustrated, believe me, I'm frustrated. As I shared, I was recused from this because someone raised a concern. I went through the ethics process to make sure it was okay, and I'm back in it. My family has rented our family house for 20 years for 5 weeks, right? We had a neighbor who was our realtor. We had a built-in police officer on making sure people didn't overstay. My mom, it was a 3-bedroom, septic for 6, would not rent to more than 6 people. Not because she didn't want people to enjoy Block Island, because our septic and our house wasn't meant for 10 people. Our neighbor would call us and say, hey, whoever's renting your house has 10 or 12 people. The number of people that have called me to say, this is a problem. I'm not saying people in this room are the problem, but there are problems where this happens continually. So that's my piece on this.
All right, I'll talk. And I take great exception at 2 people have done this. I haven't seen a lot of this. And I have been on the island, so I've been reachable. I don't think we should, as a group, encourage people to come to us with their individual complaints and we bring them back to the group. You're filtering it intentionally or not. And I do think there's a great validity in, is this what we want to do? And let's set a group apart to do this. I never thought this would take as long as it did. I thought this was going to be a one and done. I had no idea. I would not have voted to even put this forward if I had thought it was going to be the monster it was when it first came forward. I do think there were some valid things in here. The registration and the ownership, I would flip that simply to have not a manager, but if the owner is not reachable, who is the fallback on the island? I've been through this before. I know the fire department, when they had alarm systems years and years ago, asked for a contact person. And I remember somebody from New York City put himself down as the contact person. You can't, what is it? You can't solve stupid. It isn't even stupid. It's something else. But, and I do think there's a point in that. I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned here, and I don't know if this is intentional, if this is by error, if it's by misunderstanding, if it's by a failure to really, really communicate. Like there has been some confusion with the 1% tax that goes up to the state and the 1% tax that comes here. And I think the housing board, and this is not up to us, it's up to the housing board, needs to make a bigger push that it's not the same thing. That this is the money that they're collecting stays on Block Island. It doesn't go to the state. The money that the VROB or whatever that is, people collect doesn't go, they don't collect the 1% that comes back to Block Island, as far as I know. I don't think those things register with them. I'm sorry? I think people may well be paying at 1% thinking they're paying the housing tax. And I think it's very important that be paid. I'm getting a lot closer as this gets pared down and turned around, but there's a level here of administrative work that I don't think I think very few people understand that the people in this town hall actually work. And between the planning board, the zoning board, the conservation commission, the HDC, to say nothing of us, and whoever else is in here, there's an awful lot of paperwork. There's an awful lot of how do we fill this out? How do we fill that out? And then we want something done electronically. If it suits us, we don't want it done electronically if our neighbor doesn't like it. It's I still think it's too murky. I've never been in favor of it. I'm much closer than I was before. I'm sort of where Steve is. I do not think this brings, rises to the level of an island-wide referendum. But I do think, I think the council, and I apologize for this, I'm part of the council, did mishandle the manner in which you do it. You start with the consensus, you draw the parameters, and then you appoint a subcommittee. We didn't do that. We are bad. Well, the next council will do better.
So the one comment I would like to add back to Sharon, and it is around the cost, Molly, because there was a woman who spoke at the last time who brought up, we should look at inns and hotels, and obviously I have an inn, so when I went and looked at stuff and all the stuff I paid, all the taxes, the 5 licenses I paid for, blah, 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 blah. I did look at the room, the dollar amount associated with my rooming license, and that is for inns and hotels, and that's at $20 per room per year. So a caveat that I could throw in there is if hotels and inns are given that, since the 250, which again, I didn't think would be an issue, could we look at a per room fee? I know it adds to administration, but it would bring down a difference if I have a 6-bedroom house versus I rent 2 rooms,
So there's a different license for that, right? The rooming house license?
No. I'm saying, could we
You pointed out.
That's what, which town is it? Jamestown? Jamestown or Bristol? I don't have anything in front of me, but one of them, so they have a lot of variation. They have a resident and a non-resident rate. So the resident rate is half of the non-resident rate. Then they charge a sliding scale based on how many rooms are in the home. They also won't give it a license to any home with more than 4 rooms. So you can't rent a house with more than 4 rooms in that town. And however, the way that their sliding scale works, you would end up, like in some cases, the license is $850. Because it's like, are you a resident? How many bedrooms? And then you come up with this fee. So, I mean, that's a separate thing, though. The fee isn't in this document.
No,
Mm-mm.
we're setting the fee. We're setting the fee later in the meeting. if we
Yeah, the
pass-
fee is a
if we
different
pass it.
agenda item.
David?
David Lewis again, Coonamus Road. I had some prepared remarks, but I wanted to comment on 3 things that I've heard in the room regularly on this topic. The first is, from my experience, any fee that I paid when I was renting houses is a deductible expense right off your Schedule C as a cost of doing business. And so it should be revenue neutral as far as one's income goes. It comes out of yes, you have to pay it, but also it gets deducted from the rents you receive for running your business. Number 2, this whole conversation across this year and a half feels a whole lot like the silent majority against a louder minority. And the longer it goes on, I think the sense is that more people are being quiet and nobody knows it, and are in fact in favor of this kind of some kind of control. What was my third point? Well, let's see. This happens to me every time when I don't write it down. hopefully it'll come to me before I'm done. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I provided comment to each of you yesterday by email, but I felt it was important to present it to you here publicly tonight. I urge you to adopt this short-term rental ordinance version 14 as posted. Many of you have heard me say that Block Island is a more viable community than the one Martha and I grew up in. That still rings true, at least it does for me. The 1950s and early 1960s were hard times on Block Island. People got it, people got by and were happy, but for the most part, the community was in survival. Today, we can be justifiably proud of our talented, skilled, diverse, caring, energetic, year-round community with all age groups represented. Across the decades, we have also enjoyed the growth of and civic and community participation from a robust community of seasonal homeowners and summer renters. This community is additive to the year-round community. And in total, this is the valuability of which I speak. But we must recognize that our island paradise is not perfect. Our governance has often been reactive, too little, too late. Many look at the last decade with a sense that the summer seasons have been overwhelming and will continue to be. Too many people, too many cars, too many bikes, too many of this, too much of that. Both our physical infrastructure and our town staff, the first responders and the volunteers are overburdened. The short-term rental ordinance by itself will not resolve any of these concerns, but it will be a first step toward a more proactive approach toward collecting data and developing metrics that do in fact describe the attributes and the characteristics of this important segment of the island's summer tourism industry. We simply must, as a community, be much better at collecting data and being proactively analytical in our management of the many factors that impact the summer quality of life, island life for all residents and visitors alike. For the record, my wife and I owned and operated 2 short-term rental houses for 14 years, ending in 2019. Had this ordinance been in place prior to 2019, and we had to live with it, if you will, today we see nothing in the current version of this ordinance that is offensive, overbearing, or an imposition or burden to implement as landlords. In the future, we would not object to this proposed short-term rental ordinance if we were to rent again. Actually, we would embrace it with the expectation that town government would use the data and the metrics to sustain and enhance, along with other data that the town is collecting from other industry sources and factors that impact the summer environment or the year-round community. Because we all know, we've heard some other discussions, we don't have good pristine data coming out of the police department either for actionable information. So our expectation would be that town government would use the data and the metrics to sustain and enhance the island's appeal to seasonal homeowners, seasonal renters, short-term renters, and transient visitors for years to come. This is all inclusive, the need to do better for all of us. In closing, I would urge you again to adopt this ordinance. And I just remembered my third point. So I'll break from my written comments and give you that. I've worked with data for the last 28 years of my career. I know firsthand that a couple of things about data. You collect data before you need it, because once you discover you need it, if you don't have it, you're toast. Second thing is, it's very easy for me to understand why the state registration database is inadequate, but not only for Block Island, but for all of the other communities that were most impacted by summer tourism and short-term rentals. The reality is every community is different. Every community manages itself differently. They have different requirements for how they want their town to behave and their town to react to circumstances. It makes all the sense in the world that every community not only has different ordinances, and we've seen that develop since the registry in Providence was developed. We've seen evidence in all the news reporting that most communities have their own ordinances, and much are intended to be much more strict than what Block Island is proposing. Even today, Newport is considering as a council to abandon short-term rentals. That wouldn't help anybody on Block Island. So what I'm going to call the silent majority tonight is not necessarily against short-term rentals. We need those short-term rentals as to continue the robust nature of our community and our industry and our way of life. So with that, I'm all set. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Eric Jones. I'm a lifelong resident of the state of Rhode Island. Currently, my primary home is in North Kingstown. My wife and I and family have been fortunate enough to purchase a home in 2022, the later part of 2022 off of Ocean Avenue. We made a determination that we needed to, just to reiterate, and I'd hate to sound like I'm repeating myself and everybody else, but we're in a position where we need to rent the home for certain weeks throughout the year. That being said, we followed the rules. We registered with the state of Rhode Island, the $50 registration fee, the point of contact information, homeowner information, physical location of the actual home. When I referenced that database today, the state database, it was fairly easy to navigate through. My concern is for a $50 fee annually, there's already a database in play. It's through the state of Rhode Island. I think the town of New Shoreham could either piggyback or assume some kind of role and utilize that database as well. We've heard in previous town council meetings that this is to organize a database, collect the data of the homeowners, the physical location of the house. All of this already exists. I'd hate to reinvent the wheel and waste the resources. Second point that I had, I just feel that $250 annual registration fee multiplied by what the Providence Journal reported as 344-ish registered short-term renters within the state database comes out to $86,000. We've heard that we're missing close to $14,000 from people that we assume aren't paying their 1% housing authority or affordable housing fees. It's concerning to come up with such a large number. Is that number really necessary to be imposed on the backs of those who want to play by the rules, to register and to maintain a healthy, safe living environment for anybody that enters the property? We're a conscientious family. We're conscientious homeowners. I do everything in my power to get here, to enjoy the time here. And I want anybody or everybody that goes to my home and utilizes it to be in a safe, healthy environment. I just asked that second point would be the on-island representative. I think in today's day and age, I don't know why we'd be looking at not going to the point of contact first. There's got to be a phone number, there's got to be an address, contact that individual. If you are unable to contact that individual in a required amount of time, then we enforce the rules. They're not accessible. If the district court can have a judge and a defendant via Zoom or via teleconferencing, I think we could do something very similar here. This is the technology age, and I think we can embrace that at some point. Lastly, I'd just like to ask that this proposal, as it's written today, be tabled, be opened on a future discussion involving some kind of subcommittee. I know we talked about that and everybody else has talked about it. I would just like to reiterate that thought. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Can I just quickly make I just want to quickly clarify the state database. So well, actually, I should go back a little bit further. So for anyone who doesn't understand open meeting laws, I want to go back a little bit further because like when Neil referenced that this is Keith and I are working on this. The reason that only two of us were working on this is that open meeting laws prevent more than two council members from meeting outside of a meeting like this for any reason. So we can't, talk about we wouldn't be able to talk about the issue. So, when I think that's important to mention. I don't want to I feel like Keith and I are hanging out to dry on this, but
You could talk about the issue, it would just have to be posted.
has to be posted.
And
Then it's a meeting.
It's,
Right.
what's a meeting? And if people want to come, they come, but.
No, Martha, she's making the point that Keith and Molly can do prep outside of a meeting and we can't then be part of a conversation separate with Molly or with Keith because it breaks the rule. That's the point she's trying to make.
That's on, yeah.
And the point I was trying to make was that if you're going to have something that's building a consensus, that's not the way to do it. Again, I apologize. I didn't have any idea this was going to take anywhere near as long as it took. I thought this was going to be a one and done. I'm well aware of the open meeting laws and how they work, but I've also found that if you have working sessions, people aren't going to show up all the time, and you can get a lot done.
Okay. Well, I was trying to clarify the
Yeah.
process.
Thank
So
you,
much for
Molly.
that. But my second thing is the state. So I do want to talk about the state database quickly because you're not the first person to bring that up. So when I spoke to I did call the people at Department of Business Regulations who have that's where if you have a short-term rental license through the state, that's where you got that. So that was mandated by the state legislature. And it's just, so what he told me was I could fill out their form right now and I could get a short-term rental license for my kid's treehouse, for my doghouse. It doesn't matter. They don't check. They don't care. They don't care whether what you're registering conforms with local zoning regulations, right? So I could go on and register my accessory structure, my barn, which isn't legal under New Shoreham zoning regulations. I cannot rent that. But according to the state, I could get a license. I could frame that sucker and hang it on the wall and be like, well, I got a license. So it's actually misleading to people. And I would also wonder whether every one of the 344 licenses are legit, because the fact that they let you take the license out leads you to believe that you've got a real license, but you may not have a real license according to the New Shoreham zoning regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
We're referring to a registration. And when I attest to the information provided, there's a perjury aspect to this. There's an enforcement aspect to it. There's going to be violations coming towards me or whoever takes out that registration. I need to confirm the information that I am giving is accurate, complete, and to the best of my knowledge. And it's for a fee of $50. It's
a 2-year license
true.
for the state.
As opposed to the $250 annually here, where we said we being New Shoreham residents, stakeholders, $250 is going to be utilized to maintain the database, support the database, investigate any infractions, and find those found to be in violation.
Mhm.
I think that's just like excessive amount, the $86,000. If there are 340 and if everybody were to play by the rules, I just feel it's coming down on those that want to play by the rules or are forced to play by the rules. The enforcement needs to take place. We have a police department, we have a fire department, we have building inspectors. This is an organized town with qualified individuals. I just ask that everybody do the job that they're supposed to be doing and enforce the pollution, the noise ordinances, the disorderly conduct. This is all things that need to be taking place that would really take down the not so much temper, but the what's going on right now here on the island with everyone having a different idea of where the problem is coming from. Humidity.
Sure is.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you.
Sir, do you mind asking where your house is?
Off of Ocean Avenue, right behind the Dewey Cottage. There's two houses, two homes attached to the Dewey Cottage, and there's one in the back.
Steep roof?
It does, yes. Thank you.
I'd like to be able to put a person in the house.
Mary, definitely just let's make sure that if people have, anybody else before we start going through the, yep, okay.
And then,
Yes, he's
Yeah.
next.
Kay Lewis off Coonamus Road. I had a letter in the Block Island Times last Friday. I'm not going to read it. But I think it's important to say that there's been some comment about the silent majority and people who are reluctant to speak out, particularly because some of the dialogue has been pretty acrimonious. Not here, not tonight, but it's been unpleasant, and that makes people fearful of weighing in. I've heard from about 20 people who have said, thank you for the letter. They thought it was accurate. They have noticed in recent years, I mean, Block Island has been renting in the summer for centuries, basically. And many of us needed to rent homes in order to have a home here. There's nothing new about that. But in the last decade or so, there has been a change in the rental market. Maybe it's gradually happened over the past 20 years. But certainly in the last decade, there's been a change in the rental market and a change in the behavior of the people who rent. And I think that's what I have heard from people is, yes, there is a lot of overcrowding. There is a lot of noise. The year-round residents that have spoken to me are very aware that we have a source aquifer that needs to be protected, and they feel it is not being protected. I think that should be a concern for all of us. And we need the resources to be able to monitor and enforce. The other point that I made in the letter, which I think is significant, is that, we all remember, well, many of us remember a time when rentals were small and modest and made really no drain whatsoever on town resources. As houses have gotten bigger and there are burglar alarms and fire alarms and the demand for high-speed internet and so forth. One of the reasons I wanted to get out of the rental market, and we did about, 6 years ago, was because of the demands that current tenants were expecting, and it was too much. So that was an issue. And I was thinking earlier today about the 17 houses that are in my immediate neighborhood. Of those houses, 11 are not rented at all. One is rented year-round to a permanent resident of the island. The remaining 5 are primarily short-term rentals. In the past year, there have been numerous false alarms, fire alarms, and EMT calls and 911 calls. Every one of the false alarms brings our friends and neighbors away from their work away from their sleep, drags them and their equipment up a bumpy road, and then there's nothing there. Every one of the false alarms has been from a short-term rental. It's not the homeowner who's responsible, who's the problem. The problem is people behave differently on vacation. So when they're on vacation, they don't read what's posted in the house about how to silence a false alarm. And so the rescue squad comes up and the fires volunteers come up. And that is, we need these people for when the crisis is real. And I hate to see my friends and neighbors dragged up the road for false alarms. I've supported this measure, and I do think people have been listened to and it's been modified. I think more oversight is needed, and it has to be paid for. So, and again, as my brother-in-law said, back in the days when we were renting, a $250 fee would have been welcomed if it meant better protection of the island and the neighborhood and our guests. So I thank the council for working on this. I know it's been tough. And I know that there are a lot of people who support this but have been reluctant to speak because of the tenor of some of the communication. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Evening, my name is Ed Pinto, live on Mansion Beach Road. I want to thank you guys for being here. I think you are appreciated by the majority of people in this room. They may not agree with you, but I think you are appreciated. One of the issues I have, I do all my own property management at my home. I meet and greet every single person that comes there. Even if they're coming for the 4th or 5th year, I'm still there every Saturday on my turnover day. I want to see how many people, how many cars, get a fix on what's going on. I have friends and family I don't rent my house to. Why? I don't think they're going to treat it the way I want to treat it. I just discount them completely. The people that come in, I never do anything over the phone or Venmo or anything else. Everyone pays a deposit. They get billed twice a year. I meet and greet them. I make sure the house is perfect for them. Moving forward with what you're proposing, you're saying basically, Ed, you're going to have to hire an island person and you're not going to be able to self-manage your property. I'm a licensed real estate broker in Connecticut for 30 years. I also want to say that I probably dealt with 14, 15 zoning boards. Yours is probably the most user-friendly. I built a house 13 years ago. And that's the whole town hall is very, very user-friendly. So I don't have any animosity, even though I disagree with a few points in that. And I think most folks here are not mad at anybody. They're just strongly in disagreement with what you put forward. And that happens sometimes in business and in life. But you need structure, otherwise you don't have a town. You need a town council. So to my point, where I pretty much would have to pass the torch to someone on island. There's a lot of fine people that do property management, but I don't think they're going to do it the way I do it because that's my real estate investment. It's not theirs. They're just getting a weekly paycheck or going to charge me a fee to do it. And it's not so much about the fee, even the $250. I don't like paying fees for anything, but what I like less than that is paperwork and forms. The paperwork and forms, and me doing that eats up to $250 probably in the first hour and a half of my time. It's just fees are fees. The town needs money. I understand that, but we should keep the paperwork redundancy to a minimum. We're all filling out forms. My accountant is amazed at the paperwork I fill out for my rental house, but we do it. So moving forward, what could we do to kind of remedy the fact that you want me to hire somebody on island to do what I already do? I have a kiosk at the end of the driveway. I advertise my property. I've been doing this from day one. In more than that, I kind of get around the impact. I have a cell phone. You could reach me, but if you couldn't reach me, there's a key box on the front of the house, a pass key box combo for trade people. It has a key to the front door. It has a key to my utility room. So if I had to call Pete McNerney or someone else on the island, they could get there in a heartbeat and have access to my house. They're not waiting for me to fly out on a day off or anything else. The house is maintained. It's extremely safe. I know a lot of the regulations spoke about safety. I don't want to brag. I think I have the safest rental house on Block Island. I have a choking device for children in the cabinet. I have the fire blanket, escape ladders out of the high room. I have strobe lights in all the rooms so volunteer fire department would know where somebody was. It doesn't cost that much money. Maybe I spent in aggregate $450 for everything. I have a 5-gallon water bucket, Home Depot, next to the fire pit. So if it did catch on fire, and I tell everyone you have to use a screen on top of the fire pit. So I've covered all those things. The police had never been to my house for a loud party or anything else. I have a neighbor who doesn't rent his house, but he always has parties. I don't begrudge the man that. Sometimes there's a lot of people there. Sometimes there are loud parties. He bought the house. He paid for it. I believe in let people live. I just don't want a new ordinance to be a bit of an overreach in paperwork, in fees, in kind of being micromanaged by someone else. I already micromanage my property. People that know me will tell you I'm a fanatic about how clean the house is, how safe the house is. And I have a 4-bedroom septic design. I could have 8 people in my house. I tell them, I have a lot of friends on the island. I don't want to see 6 cars in the driveway, and I don't want to see 12 people at the house. It's not built for that. It's not made for that. And I make it very clear to them. And I think that in 13 years, I probably had one problem. Settle the problem, and I don't keep their deposits. I just don't let them come back. I think that most people in this room are responsible homeowners. Any house out here is $1 million plus. So you don't want someone trashing your home. So I don't think that we need so many regulations and so many layers looking into what we're doing. I think that probably 95% of the people want their home maintained. They don't want it ruined. They don't want the police there. They don't want 14 people there because they're going to be paying for the septic repairs. They're going to be paying for the plumbing repairs or any other damage that takes place. I thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Yes, Arlene.
Can I
go
just
ahead.
address one thing? So the on island, having an on island contact, I don't think that in any spot we've said that it needs to be a property manager or someone that you hire. It'd be like, if I'm going out of town, I'm like, my friend Arlene, I'm gonna put Arlene's number down, right? Like, if you,
That's not fair to the person who has to watch the public. Okay, I have to go to this thing I know, so let Arlene.
okay, no, that's fine. I mean, like, I don't think the intention is that you're hiring somebody.
So you want me to ask somebody to?
No, wait, I'm, as I said before,
So-
I'm not in agreement on this whole thing. But as far as the property manager, I don't know where the term came from, probably somebody who was against it. And I would say, to me, it should just be a fallback if you cannot be reached. If whoever, and that's all, I think
Exactly.
that's all anybody's looking
So,
for.
first of all, I
it
just want to say, if you need to, if you want to like have a conversation, you do have to do it from my microphone. But I guess I'm just trying to clarify this because it's a sticking point with a lot of people. So I think it is something that we should clarify a little bit what the intent was. But the intent is like on the application, you're the first person that's going to get a call. So I've just listened to like over the last year, I've listened to dozens and dozens and dozens of people tell me they've never had a problem at their house. Well, then the person you put down as a contact is never going to get a phone call because you never have a problem at your house, which is terrific. Perfect.
So Molly,
But
can I
it's
just
saying-
interrupt one sec? Keith, do you have it up? Can you read the language?
I was just about
Associate,
to,
great, perfect.
actually. Yeah. The local representative shall respond to inquiries from town officials, including but not limited to the police department promptly, but in no event longer than 2 hours from the time of inquiry. To ensure that the use of the dwelling unit complies with the requirements of this chapter as well as other town ordinances and state laws. Failure to timely respond is a violation. Above that in section A, owner shall designate on the registration form an individual who shall be physically present in New Shoreham during short-term rental periods as the owner's local representative. authorized to receive any process notice or demand required or permitted to be served upon the owner of the dwelling unit. The owner may be designated as the local representative. If the owner seeks to change the designated local representative, an amended registration form shall be filed with the registrar.
I would not ask someone to have to respond to a police issue or some call from someone without compensating. I would not ask them to be accountable for my home and what's going on in my home if I wasn't here. And you're saying that person has to be accountable if you can't reach me. Yes, you can reach me, but what if I'm in Ireland and you want somebody right there to do something? So I pay a person to be accountable for me. So it's not property management, but it is someone. You're not going to just ask a friend to cover for you. It doesn't work like that. That's not being, that would be irresponsible of me to just ask a person to cover for me.
I think Molly was trying to.
That's all I'm
draw
trying to
Draw
say.
the bright line because there was a misunderstanding between whether we're requiring people to retain property managers. That's right. Right. Yes.
And you change this and it needs to remain.
Yes, that's, wait, we changed it?
I just, my fault, thanks.
Wait, we
My
changed
fault,
something?
I said.
Go ahead, Arlene.
Hi, Arlene Chunny. I had two things, and this was second, but I'm going to make it first. I happen to have a rental house near me that they come in the spring and open it up and then rent it and go away. You don't see them. They're from New Jersey. And every year I have to call the police because there are raucous parties there. And when I call the police, it costs us, the taxpayers, money because they have to come. We only have 4 working policemen right now. So it's an inconvenience. And then I have another neighbor who gave me their phone number who rent the house. And I had to call them once, not for a disturbance, but there was something wrong with the house that I noticed. And the mailbox was full. They gave me a number that is non-compos mentis. So I think it's really important that there be somebody on the island that can be called for a house. But what my concern is that the definition of a bedroom, it's very, very important to have an egress window in a bedroom. You know, we had a horrendous fire, and by the grace of God and a tenant in the hotel who happened to be a fireman, everybody got out without any injuries. And fortunately, nobody on the fire department was injured. But the reason that there are codes for window egress in bedrooms is so that somebody can get out. And more importantly, a fireman with his equipment on his back can get in. It's 5.4 square feet. So, you know, if people are renting rooms as bedrooms that have basement windows or that have little casement windows that are 2 feet by 2 feet, that it doesn't work. We don't want to have a tragedy on this island. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Arlene. Go ahead, Pete. You can use that one over there. Just make sure your green light is on.
Just a couple of quick questions, if I may. Renwick Tweedy. Can you give me an idea of how many people are paying the 1% rental tax now?
I don't, do you remember offhand the gross number of people who are paying?
I don't need an exact number. I
don't.
Here.
We send out about 500 notices. And actually, we probably send out a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you
I'm sorry
said-
about that. We always have to send 5 to you.
But I think the number, this is the point I was trying to make earlier, that Cindy Pappas had the percentage rate of return on them, which was quite high. But there may be people who are paying, there are people who are just flat out fibbing probably, but more to the point, I think there may very well be people who are paying, who think they're paying the 1% through their platform because they're without knowing that they owe a 1% to Block Island. They think, oh, that's 1%. I've already paid that to the state. And that's the thing that I think isn't to be handled through here, but has to just be made, people have to be made much more aware of it. Because the return, the percentage return is very high.
Pete?
If I remember correctly, I
You
think
have
she
an idea
quoted
How many
69%.
people actually write a check or whatever to the town and say, here's my 1% payment?
The only thing that she had was the number, because as I said, I have to send one in. I've never rented anything. But everybody who's a property owner gets that notice and is supposed to send it back saying either you didn't pay or
I know, I've done it.
you've done it, of course,
Long
so
time.
you know. She said it was, I don't remember the percentage. It was way over 80.
I believe she said 69%.
I thought it was a high.
Was it higher than that?
I thought it was higher than that.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
s-
high.
How many?
So if you were to ask,
don't-
that goes to the housing board to,
No. I
we'd have
just-
to ask the housing
here.
board the number.
Can you give
Let's
me,
listen to the speakers, Steve? Let's just listen.
can you give me an idea of how many properties you would expect would not be in compliance right now with your new ordinance? I mean, you must have some feeling that this is gonna,
We
bring
don't
some
even know
people
how
on
many
board, right?
houses rent.
We don't even.
excuse me?
We don't even know how many houses rent.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many houses rent? You don't have a real sense of how this is going to impact the rental market. All right.
Well, the realtors, I think, quoted 1,000, but that would be a 1,000 through someone here at a meeting said 1,000, which was what Jen Brady,
That
I
was,
think, used as a
that was
number.
Jess Willie.
Oh, Jess Willie. Yes, yes.
All right. You spoke about license. There's nothing in here that talks about a license or a permit, just a registration.
Right.
Is that intentional? Is this intended to issue a permit or a license that can be revoked?
No, I don't think, I don't. It's a good question. The registration is the term of art that appears to be used in multiple towns who have
Okay.
ordinances like this. I think the idea is that if there are violations, you have the opportunity to fine. But if you're not in compliance, you can't register.
Okay. All right. It would seem, as I read through this, it would be helpful if there was an area in here that specifically said, these are the things you need to be able to do or have in your house in order to rent it. You have a list that says owner obligations or something, but it doesn't, you don't have a property obligation list. It's sort of spread in there. Things like you need a local rep, you need a registration posted in the house, you need bedroom sizes. There's one place that talks about smoke, but there's no place that puts that all together and says,
I think that's a good.
here's
point,
what
Pete. Yeah.
would be nice to see.
So the application form is not part of the ordinance. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
Right.
it would be
Yeah.
nice if you
So-
could just say, oh, this is what I need to do in order to rent my house.
So if this were to pass, then the land use office would assemble the form. But they haven't assembled a form because we haven't passed
But
it.
Okay.
but it's a good point,
I'm
and I
just
think,
Yeah.
I
talking
think,
about
I think this is.
past
No, I
this
understand what you're saying.
particular
Yeah.
Thing, it would be, people read it, they go, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wouldn't it be easier if you could do an online registration? Somebody in the town doesn't have to then take
Yes.
your handwritten whatever and fill it out.
Yes.
And
So that is the goal, right, Millie?
Millie
Yeah.
and Jen, I think, have been working.
Uh,
So, yes, through OpenGov.
I
Yes.
think there was one other question I had.
Please note that there was an ask to add to the ordinance.
Is there? You.
The town council didn't ask for that.
You
In fact,
have
I
a
think we took some of that out.
2-hour response time in here. Where did that come from?
Well, if there's an emergency at the house, it seemed like 2 hours was a reasonable number. Mary, I'm going to ask you, I've refrained from doing this, but I got to tell you, people have not sighed, people have not interrupted. And I get your passion and I respect it, but you have to have respect for people who are speaking, who have been called upon, and not sort of sighing and frankly interrupting while people are taking their turn to speak.
Thank you. It just seemed odd to me. I can't picture what's going to happen at a property that's going to need a 2-hour response time from anybody other than the police, and the police are going to be there
Yeah.
in 2 minutes.
So what do you
So-
think? What do you think?
I don't know.
We just want
24
some.
hours, what? You
2
want to get
hours
hold of
seem
the
like-
owner of the property and say, hey, you got a problem. And I expect you to address it, but tomorrow morning or this
So I think-
afternoon or
I think that actually came
whatever.
from Westerly. When we were going through other towns, Westerly has a requirement that you have a local representative, somebody who lives in Westerly, and their response, they need them to be available to show up within 2 hours. So,
Okay, that doesn't make
that-
it right. That just makes it.
no,
Yeah.
and Keith just said, do you have a different idea? I mean, you know,
I don't. It's not really clear to me who is ever going to call and say, oh my God, you have to get to this property right now,
so.
except the police or the fire department.
Sure. The
I mean, if
example
it's
I
burning
think
down, yeah, you're going to want to get hold of the property owner, but not tonight because it's going to burn down. So that was just not
Right.
clear to me as I read this.
The
that's all I got to
the
say.
times where you would need this,
Excuse me?
as the times where you would need this person are very few and far between. As
What are they?
Has been demonstrated by everyone here who said they have perfect tenants who never have a problem, and which I get that, right? Because there aren't that many problems. I mean, last summer, a house got hit by lightning, right? You can't account for that, right?
If I can't think of a situation where that can happen, can you? Can
A
you
house
tell me
got hit by
when
lightning.
2 hours you have to be there?
Well, could
I
I,
don't think it's.
If you can, great.
For me, the 2 hours is essentially a definition of responsiveness.
Yeah.
Pete, to be
yeah,
honest.
and
That's,
was,
you know, that's for me, the idea behind the local.
For a lot of people in here, that seems to be a problem.
Yeah, for
So
me, the idea of a local representative is responsiveness.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we live here and see each other all the time. You know that there are times when you can't get here.
Yeah.
It happens. Bill McComb is the reason.
so,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
so just it's worth kind of going down this road again, and I go back to Sharon's concern of the secondary person. Was there an intent that, so let's say Sharon, who never has a problem, has a problem. Please show up, and they call Sharon, and Sharon answers the phone, solved, like whatever it is, a noise complaint, it moves on, it's immediately done. Was there an intent, or is it, again, it sounds like it was from Westerly, but is it, if Sharon doesn't respond within 2 hours, then it goes to the local representative?
Intent was to be proactive about having contact information in case of an emergency. It actually, I'm gonna say that I'm constantly amazed, like, what a sticking point this is. Cause it's
But
kind of
it-
like when you fill out your form for your kid to go to school and you're like, oh, if we can't reach you, who are we calling to bring your kid lunch money? Like,
Okay, but that's
you know,
different than an emergency, right? So I think Kay brought something up. Did she?
No, she's over
Um,
there.
That people are changing, right? So somebody complaining about an air conditioner, you know, and, oh, I have to respond in 2 hours. You're saying, and maybe it just needs clarity in the words, that some kind of emergency. Well, what is the emergency? Is it, because you're going to call the police, you're going to call the fire department and address the emergency. If somebody's being violent in the house or there's a big party, you're going to call the police. They're going to do more than I can do. So I'm not sure where the two, I just feel like, you know, what Kay also said, if you do have to call the police, like everybody in your neighborhood's going to come out and somebody's going to pick up the phone and call you anyways. So I just don't understand the 2 hour response time and who defines emergency.
Can I ask a really practical question? Is this about concern about having a local representative designated or the response time? And there's no wrong answer to that. I'm just trying to solve for, what the, well, we just talked about that for the last 20 minutes.
I'm using a real example of something that really happened, right? I'm not going to make up examples. Again, I just don't know why this is such a sticking point. You put down your friend's phone number and obviously clear it with your friend, right? But like, if there's some sort of an emergency and I'm not on island, will you respond? Talk to whoever, nobody's going to call about an air conditioner. That's on you. We're talking about like if the police or the fire department have to respond. We're not talking about, or let's say the water company. Let's say you've got a water main break. I don't know, right? But all I'm saying is something town related. We're not talking about like, if you're worried about someone to replace.
I would still feel obligated to pay someone to do that. I wouldn't just ask somebody to do that.
Okay.
I just wouldn't. I wasn't. Expect somebody to take a.
Thank you. Anybody else before we go back to Mary? Keith, Monty, and then Keith, and then if no one else, Mary's.
I disagree. Monty Stover.
Yes.
Mary Stover's my wife, and I disagree with the ordinance, but not just because she's a real estate agent.
Mhm.
I think that the main reason that we have problems on the island is from overcrowding and day trippers coming more frequently to the island. And that's a result of the interstate navigation having more ferries. More people are coming. And I love interstate navigation. I'm not blaming them for overcrowding.
Try to get a car reservation next week.
But I've done a little research on the landing fee, which was put in place in 1990, 34 years ago, 50 cents per person who comes over here. And I understand the town gets a portion of that. I don't know what that total amount is. I'd like to know. But 34 years ago, that's a long time. Inflation is here. If that were to be raised to $1 or $1.50, it would bring a lot of money into the town, and we could improve our infrastructure, because that's what we need. We need infrastructure to handle all these day trippers that are coming here, that are wrecking their mopeds, that are going to Ballards, and probably overcrowding rental homes too, because they come over because they know someone that has a rental home. So they're in that and crowding that. So I know it's a legislative process for that landing fee to be increased, but I think it's worth looking into. And I'd be willing to go with whoever goes to the state and talk to them about the struggles we've been having with trying to deal with all these people. So I'd like to see that happen.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Monty. 1 second, Ed. We got, I'm trying to get to the people for whom it's their first time, except for Sharon. Teasing Sharon, you know that. Keith Lewis.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I want to agree with a lot of what Monty just said about the problem of overcrowding, too many people, too many cars, too many mopeds. So I agree wholeheartedly with what he said, and I'm sort of going to get to that in what I'm saying right now. But first of all, I want to thank the individuals on the town council for their willingness to serve on this public body. I know it ain't easy, and I appreciate your commitment. Thank you. Now, I don't know if I'll get the same amount of clapping, but I support the concept of the short-term rental ordinance. I'm thankful that the town council has the wisdom to realize that these short-term rentals impose additional burdens on town services, police and fire protection, water, fresh water, sewage, electric and other utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Someone has to pay for those. Should it be the taxpayer? The town council, with its role in the budget process, is very much aware of the implications. And it's the town council that has to respond to angry taxpayers at the financial town meeting. This island is under severe pressure from global sources. More and more, we're losing the concept of community. Block Island is now becoming a cash cow for mainland-based entities. So many properties have been turned into mainland ownership, governed by faceless corporations and LLCs that care little about this community. In some cases, it's due to the transfer of major properties, such as hotels, marinas, et cetera. But even if it's the rental of a single house, that too becomes problematic because there are now so many. Taken collectively, those individual properties add up, especially when influenced by global entities such as Airbnb or VRBO or whatever. Should they be given a free ride? I therefore support the town council and the concept of the short-term rental ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody else before we go to Mary? Anybody else? Going once, going twice. You guys, so we'll go Mary, Ed, and then you, Eric. What's that? She did. I'm giving her.
Hi, Mary Stover again. I just wanted to point out one thing. This entire ordinance is based on short term. Short term is less than 30 days. How many rental units do you know of in the town that rent for more than 30 days at a time? Apartments, summer people, employees. There's lots of them. None of them are regulated at all. And they're not part of this regulation. Why aren't they part of the regulation? That's my question.
Ed?
Just briefly, when they touched on the landing fee, I thought the same concept would have a holiday landing fee. You, as a board, decide, okay, 4th of July, then they have, I guess it's Rhode Island Day or some other holiday here, where we get an influx of young people coming out here, having a great time, but not really contributing to our economy, but straining our law enforcement, our EMS, et cetera, et cetera. These kids pay $200, sometimes $300 for a concert ticket. Charge them $18, $22, an odd amount of money to come for that one-day ticket, and use that money to pay to offset the expense of law enforcement, the strain on our medical and everything else. Because they're just coming, it's not the whole summer where you have to increase the landing fee. You want to make it affordable for families and for people that really can't afford $20. Young kids today that are coming out here, they'll probably still come, but at least you're going to get it's not going to stop them from coming. You're going to get an influx of money that's much needed for the town to be able to handle that. whether you have 7 officers or 70 officers. If you have 2,500 kids, the kids are going to win if something breaks out. So you'll be able to cover your expenses, clean the beach, maybe put up porta potties, whatever you have to do, but it's on their dime, not on our dime. And the other issue somebody brought up was just the fee structure. I think people could get past that. And maybe I misinterpreted before when you said about having somebody in hand. I have a person that cleans for me, Augusta Rich. She's also a property manager of sorts. If I'm not on island and somebody calls up and says, gee, what do I do with the empty propane tank? She'll go over there and take the tank, put it out for Pete McNerney. He'll come pick it up. She's my other set of hands and eyes, but she's not here all the time. I just didn't want to be forced to pass the torch to someone where all of a sudden I sign off that you're in charge of my home now. I like to stay in charge of it only because I could keep the integrity of what I'm trying to do there. Yep. Thank you again.
Eric Jones, off Ocean Avenue. Just one quick point. We've heard a couple times from a couple different people here about a silent majority. If there is a silent majority, is there any way that we can go to a public vote? We're not hearing from the silent majority.
We're not, I feel very comfortable voting on this ordinance. I think every time there's controversy we have frankly a representative democracy. We don't have the tradition, in my experience, of sending everything that's controversial to referendum or special or financial town meeting. It just hasn't been our process.
Thank you.
I mean, I know there are states, I used to live in one, where that's much more common, but not here. Anybody else? Pat?
Evening. My name is Pat Doyle and I live on.
Is your
High-
green light on?
Yes.
Okay, just
yes.
making sure.
My husband and I have owned Mitchell Cottage for 33 years, and we've had a combination of short-term rentals. We've had teachers there through the months. We've had full-time town employees. And I've come to about 3 of the meetings here on this issue. And I do think there have been wonderful issues raised by individuals. And by the way, the thing I wanted to start out with is to say thank you to all of you, the council, for the time that you put into this. It's not a job, it's really a dedication. And I'm sick about anyone calling someone's home or harassing. I think there is no place for that in this country, in this state, in this town. And unless we change that by doing, just trying to make sure we're not a community that succumbs to that kind of behavior. So I feel very badly for that. I think everyone I've heard are speaking from their own individual circumstances and what they are comfortable with or not comfortable with. I see a couple of problems with the ordinance. Semantics is probably the biggest because people read this rather lengthy and you've had what, 14 iterations of this. And each time new things are raised about, are you there? Are you not there? And I do appeal to you that there be language that is not so absolutely specific on something, that you have to have this or you don't have to have this or this person must respond, unless it can always happen. I wouldn't put loosey-goosey language in an ordinance because I think down the road that could get the town into some trouble in terms of a legal suit being brought against it. That something happened because one of the agencies of the town, whether it's zoning or police or rescue, didn't respond in a way that the owner thought they would. I mean, it gets so, I would just warn you that the language really should not be so specific, should not be lifted from, let's say, Newport or from Westerly. We are not Newport, we are not Westerly. We had an incident 3 weeks ago. We had to be off island with my husband. We were at Mass General Hospital and the fire alarm went off. We get an immediate call on our phone. We were there right in the office. The phone comes. We knew who to call on that. However, it's happened twice this summer because of the humidity, I'm told, from electronics tech. Well, you know, I live on High Street, thank God, because the police, the fire, the rescue, I feel badly if they come because it's time taken away from their day with their job or their family. But things like that happen. And I don't know how we can get around it, but I don't think it's fair to the town or to you that people come and talk about all these complaints about the noise or all these complaints about what's happening next door to them and stuff. I think if a complaint is going to be taken seriously, it has to be documented in writing. And that's the one thing that upset many people who came to the initial meetings is where was the documentation of the numbers on the health and welfare of the community or the noise? We didn't go there. We don't have it. We have to do something in terms of registration. I feel as a taxpayer and as a renter, I think everyone who rents and takes money for housing or for just the housing that where we protect people and not no matter who they are, whether they're renters or not, we do have to have an ordinance that things are registered. And Mary raised a point about how about all those people who rent for 30 days or more? Are we talking about their housing? I've always thought of that in this process, that in short-term rentals, we don't even go there. We seem hell-bent, and we should, to protect people who are in our homes that maybe don't have the protections of the right size window, egress, carbon dioxide detection. And if we're talking about housing in this community, I think we should be looking at not in a way that would ever take away a housing for someone who can't afford something, but we should be concerned about all of our abodes, because there are many people we know in this community who can only live in a basement apartment with a family of 5. We know these people, you know these people, where fire potential is very big because of or noise. So, you know, let's put our heart where our minds are on the short term. If we're talking about residential properties, I think we should begin to think down the road that we're going to put some requirements on landlords and on this community that every place that people live, raise a family, should be safe. And use some of the expectations we have for short-term rentals. It should be for all housing. So with that, I sat here tonight. I think everyone is right. I do. If they come up and say, you know, this is the way I feel in my heart, it's not I think, though, we need to be very careful with the language in this huge ordinance, that we don't tie ourselves down to a job that someone has to do that's impossible, that we as a town are committed to. Maybe we take it in steps, or we modify some of the language just to keep yourselves in this town out of trouble with this. And I thank you, and thank you again for the job you do. And I think the kinds of discussion we've heard here tonight are very healthy. I've not heard anger and vitriol. People are angry and they're worried about their own well-being. But I think it's a tribute to this island that people come to these meetings and speak up. Thank you.
I agree, Pat. Thank you. Anybody else? I have a motion to close this public hearing. Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Are people inclined to vote on this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve the short-term rental ordinance.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Discussion. I noticed one posted is written as posed in, yes. Yeah, I think one hopes that our clerks feel comfortable making non-substantive changes like that. but it is, of course, now I can't find it. It says posing instead of posting.
A under A. But so there's A, B, it's A under A.
Yeah. It says in the second line, be posed online. See that? That was your fault, Millie, I'm sure. Any comments? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no?
I'm opposed for reasons that I've been
Yes.
stating, and I do feel that there are reasonably minor changes that could be made to make this more palatable. And I do not think I think the process is extraordinarily flawed. And I would hope that it would not be carried on in the future.
Thank you, Martha. So that was,
With fire and rescue personnel who must be watching at home, giving me examples of why you would want someone to show up at a house in 2 hours.
okay, great. But we're done. Now we are on to item number 8. This will be a public hearing on the bike tour ordinance. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing for the. bike tour.
Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. We are now open. Just for history and background for folks who have not been following this issue, this was raised several weeks ago. We had a public hearing on this new ordinance. Realized because Keith Stover wasn't paying attention that it needed to be sent to the planning board. It went to the planning board and received unanimous approval there, and it is now before us for action. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this ordinance? Anybody?
So I know the letters we received were primarily on the topic of one specific tour business, but I think we should talk about like that this covers all kinds of tour businesses, right? So like this would cover like a tour of the cemetery by the Historical Society. This would cover ghost tours, kayak tours. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to be.
Yes, it does.
To clarify that. And we're limiting the size. So I did have a question because for a volunteer organization I belong to, I was on Eventbrite last night, and there is like this weird thing on Eventbrite where you can do a tour of Block Island. You buy it on there. So it's not anybody who lives here. It's this very, I don't know what it is. But it got me thinking that like it's telling us that you can buy up to 65 tickets, which would be above the number. We're saying no more than
Yeah, they
25
would not be permitted to do
participants.
that.
And of course, I was trying to find it again earlier and now I can't find it. So if anybody else can find
I
it,
was going to say, what's Eventbrite?
it was very peculiar.
I won't go there.
So that would fall under this, right?
Yes. The groups cannot be larger than 25, but if you're running a bicycle tour, there are limits for bicycles.
That's a different, right?
That's, yeah.
Right.
But if you were doing a walking tour of downtown, you'd have to limit your number to 25.
Which makes absolute sense,
Yeah.
given the congestion on the
Right.
sidewalks and everything.
Yeah.
So, and then again, to ask a question that I think I know the answer to though, bus tours are under a separate, that's separate because it's a separate license? A charter bus license, so that's different. Okay. Thank you.
And this, yes. Anybody from the audience? Kim? Tom, one sec. Saw Kim first.
I'm sorry to say I'm completely behind the eight ball on this. Does this include nature walks?
Oh, good question. It's about tour businesses.
So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so a
Tour
nonprofit
businesses.
like the Historical Society?
Well, I think
No,
a business is where you.
So a tour business is a business enterprise or establishment that engages in, offers, provides, conducts public or private guided tours for either walking, utilizing a bicycle, including motorized bicycle, kayak, or by other means, equipment, or vehicle, but not mopeds.
Okay,
I mean,
nature walks are not a business.
Nature walks are not a business.
But excellent question.
As long as they're under some other blanket, I think. Don't you have
Well-
like, aren't you under, for example,
Ocean View or TNC.
yours? Yeah, I don't even know what they're under. Crazy as a Coot, isn't that under something? Under the blanket of it's TNC.
It's not, it's, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a separate
Right.
business. isn't it?
Right.
So just
Yeah.
because of that clarity, and Kim, you don't charge for them, correct? So should there be something in it that says to make sure it's a business, there's a fee associated with the tour? Because then that would leave free stuff out if we wanted. I don't know if that's where we want to go, but how does, to me, if she's walking with people and touring, why, we can exclude it, but in the language, it sounds like it would be in.
No, it wouldn't be. You have to read the definitions. It's excluded. It's a tour business, a business enterprise or establishment that engages in offers, et cetera.
So
So because she's not charging, it wouldn't be considered a business? Is that?
That's how I read it. That's.
Well, I would read it because it's not.
I would say it was Kim Gafford walk into our business and then
Yes,
we be charged.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's part of
yeah,
the
right.
Nature Conservancy's mission to have such a
Yes.
walk.
But that's an
It's good.
excellent point to bring up
Yes.
because it's not
Thank
one I thought of when I
Bill?
was reading this. But I do have a question about
Doesn't
like
apply to
the Historical Society is not a business, but they charge for their, if they do a walking tour,
Business.
it is a business? I thought it's not a nonprofit.
It's a non-profit, it's a nonprofit business, I thought. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I was going to the charging of it, where there's a fee. But if we think that language is clear enough, we can leave it. Yeah, but that's. that
Would you be more comfortable if we put a for-profit business enterprise or establishment that engages?
Say someone creates a not,
Yeah. That's my sense of it. but-
yeah, that's where my head was going, was Bimmy runs the boat tours, so they would be included.
Mhm. But they can't fit 25, well, I don't know. I mean. Go ahead, Tom. You had your hand up before. Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
Tom Doyle, High Street. Is the question before you, is it not about changing the zoning to accommodate a business?
It is under the zoning ordinance, yes. Yes.
And this would be a business being allowed in a residential
Yes.
area?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, in some, yes. But I don't want to move off this point because I want to make sure that we've got it square and we're comfortable.
Oh, so that was my question for the
Yes,
moment. Yeah.
yes, thank you. Yes. Did I answer it okay, Tom? I just want to make sure you heard my answer. The answer is yes, it's under the zoning ordinance. Okay. Uh, provides or conducts for a fee. Are you in that paragraph?
Which one?
Look under 202 definitions. Business enterprise or establishment that engages in, offers, provides, or conducts for a fee, public or private guided tours for walking, blah, blah, blah. Is that?
Yeah.
Does that make, yeah, I'm just adding for a fee, after conducts. You see that, Melanie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that works.
So here's my concern. I hope I can articulate this concern well, because it's trying to convey a feeling that I haven't quite. I think right now, under this language, I hate to pick it, but Kim Gaffick can say, we're not a business enterprise. But if the Nature Conservancy decides that they want to charge $1.50 a head for muckraking, yeah, for marsh mucking. That was really funny. Then do you lose that argument that you're not a business enterprise? I mean, I don't have any problem inserting for a fee. I think that makes it clearer and makes people more comfortable. The entities we're talking about charge for this, but is there an unforeseeable? Maybe we should cover that. So let's, if there's no one else who wants to speak, we're going to close the public hearing.
I'm not done.
To add it, because it doesn't say. The way it's written, it could be for a fee or not.
Right.
If you add for a fee, then it can't be without a fee.
So,
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it the way that it is. I was just trying to solve if there were concerns from people who are doing this. I'm not I was fine with it before we sent it to plan.
I think Kim brought up an excellent point that we hadn't thought about, and we need to make sure that we're addressing it.
So
Correct.
here's an example where you might not want to make that change.
Yes.
Say the nonprofit, the Nature Conservancy wanted to do a special walk as a fundraiser,
Right.
right? Then they would probably call it a donation, but it would be a fee, a one-time thing as a fundraiser.
Yeah.
If you put that fee in there, then the ordinance applies. Or if you leave it as it is, you could still make the argument that you're not a business. We're
That's-
just doing a one-time
That's
fundraiser.
better put than I tried to. That's my concern, is that we all of a sudden convert things that are, essentially donations, and in exchange for your donation, you get to whatever.
Special access.
Yeah.
So back to
Does that
Martha's,
count?
let's not, maybe you shouldn't make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Are people okay with that? We landed, leave the language as it is. Can I have a motion to close?
Wait, I still have more.
But you're gonna have more. I'm just gonna close the public hearing and then you. What?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, you don't have to speak only during the public hearing,
oh, okay.
but go ahead.
Well,
It's totally fine.
okay, well, okay, so I want to make sure, I don't know if James is with us, but I'm looking at on 202 definitions. And then so in the definition of tour business, right? And then on F, so it's a little vague under tour business. It says, but not mopeds, right? So it says here, in-person tours either for walking or utilizing a bicycle, kayak, or by other means, equipment or vehicle, but not mopeds, right? But what about electric scooters? What about so, I'm just saying do we want to see, Segway tours, down the sidewalks and electric scooters? I mean, we're saying no, not mopeds, but okay. Under F, right? So guess what I'm asking is, does that cover that?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
So we don't need to reiterate that if it's down below. That's my question.
Yes, that's, yes. I believe that. I was pretty strong about this, just as an aside.
Okay,
As my
okay. I just, I just want to make sure
It's the same question. Yeah.
that,
I mean, the real question, and it's, I think, sort of, a part of that is, well, can you now have, a rental, so rental of electronic bikes is prohibited, of e-bikes is prohibited. But how do you draft this ordinance in such a way that it doesn't create a loophole so that somebody can say, well, I'm actually not renting you an e-bike, I'm renting you a tour? And that was sort of the essential underlying principle here. So, and I think Karen heard that loud and clear, and it's buttoned up. Mary Ann, I don't know.
Yes.
so you're comfortable with that language too. Okay,
Because that's exactly what we discussed.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Tom?
okay.
No, I don't mind at all. After Tom.
Well, if this is allowing a for fee business in a residential zone, I don't think that's a very good idea. It's the main purpose that we have zoning is to define these different zones. And what you get is you get creep. Not creeps, but creep of businesses. And pretty soon there's one, and then there's two, and then there's three, and you no longer have a residential area. So that would be my objection to the change.
Thank you.
Yes, and I was going to raise the same thing. We also received a letter on it. So I want to better understand, and it will, Zena, because your business is the unique one that's kind of driving a lot of this discussion. I would like to better understand what the plan is there, because it is impactful. We've gotten, 2 notes on it. I did have someone approach me right before the meeting about it, that is in residential. So is the intent that you'll be taking these tours on the town roads as well as dirt roads and to trail? I mean, obviously trails aren't supposed to have bikes. What is the intent?
So the bikes are stored off of High Street on Lois Lane, and that's my meetup spot. And I believe this has already gone to the planning board, and was voted on unanimously that that zone, that residential RC is allowed for the type of business that I'm running. But just to be clear, I start there and I end there. I spend a total of about 15 minutes at the beginning and maybe 10 minutes at the end, and then the bikes are put away. So I'm not, and to answer your other question, I tour around the town roads, and I do go on some dirt roads depending on the ability of my customers.
Zena, my understanding was that this is where the business is headquartered,
Yes.
where it
Yeah.
starts out, not where it actually happens.
That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I do want to go back to Tom's concern. This is creep into residential. Again, I know it's not our issue, but we had the other issue that didn't get handled well. I don't agree it was the right decision allowing a business to have trucks going down a dirt road, which is clearly residential, unlike what we're talking about now. But this is another area where we're creating some creep on this. And I am concerned. So-
Maybe a little clarity. This is not allowed in residential A and residential B. From the beginning of zoning out here, there was one business zone that's pretty much all of the various business zones, and residential C as well had many of the permitted uses that the business zone had. So that's in keeping with the general.
Yes, but she will be conducting her business. I get the start and I get the finish, but she'll be conducting her business on dirt roads in clearly residential zones and areas.
Well, the cemetery is in a
You're talking about the
residential
tour
zone.
itself.
The tour itself, yes. I understand the start and the finish, that I can get there, but you got 15 people coming down your private, well, not
Six.
private road.
6.
6. Okay, that's good.
And
But
I will let you finish. I don't want to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
the
No, that was good.
this tour is not unique in taking people around the island. There are all kinds of tours that are conducted on the island.
But those are different licenses.
They are.
I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I agree with you, but those are different licenses.
Yeah. I think that,
And they, my knowledge, taxi tours don't do dirt roads. Right? They're,
no, I mean, it depends on the person. Everybody, they're all individuals, but,
Cemeteries the cemeteries are in, I think, all residents.
and then there's ghost tours. I mean, I don't think I'm unique in showing people different parts of the island.
And then, so referencing the two, so we actually got 4 letters. 2 were from neighbors on Lois Lane, who did have issues with this. And so, and they were referencing a shed, and I mean, that's the neighborhood I grew up in. So I was like, I am unfamiliar with a shed. It's not a shed. It's Connie's. So, it's not a shed, but, in any case, so I did go check it out. Where is this? I didn't know that that's where this was centered, but I did get in touch with the land use officer and have a conversation about whether this fell into compliance, and the land use officer said it did. So I don't have any reservations with that. We also had two letters from other neighbors in support of it. Jen Brady Brown is the, or Jen. Sorry, Jen Brady. Sorry. Sorry, 3 neighbors.
David?
I'm confused about the dirt road discussion. I don't think that we're not being precise about whether we're talking about town roads that are built of dirt or private roads that are dirt. I don't think we should be allowing we shouldn't be wanting, let me be more direct. I have no desire to have anybody leading any kind of tour down Lewis Farm Road.
It's a private.
Well, that's the point I'm bringing. You've been using the word, you've been confusing the dirt roads that the town owns with the private roads, all with the generic word dirt roads. And I'd just like the conversation to be more precise about what you're allowing and what you're not allowing in that respect. And then another question, unrelated, is the chart that's shown down at the bottom for tour businesses in yellow. I assume that part of the goals this evening is to fill out that blank line with X's and P's and S's.
Planning did that.
No. They did?
Yes. Okay. Absolutely, Judy. Come.
This is for David. Today I had a tour and they wanted to go down to your property. I didn't do it.
All right then. Any other? Yes.
So going back to what you were talking about with the tour, the definition of tours versus F. Now, so F appears to be prohibiting the rental. So essentially, so there's no loophole that you could then,
Right.
like, that's what we were talking about. But the tour business definition itself is not prohibiting electric scooters as a tour business. And I'm not sure, Molly, whether that's what you were alluding to. So what this side is talking about is to keep the F side is talking about keeping the rentals, like the bike rental places, from not allowing them to rent any of these electronic
Right.
devices. This tour here is not prohibiting the use of those vehicles for tours.
So that's exactly what I was trying to get. That's what I was asking.
So-
Like, should we take what's in F and apply it to the 202 definitions?
Thank you. That's really helpful. A bike tour business has both electric e-bikes and non-e-bikes. And if we exclude e-bikes in the tour business definition, then
including motorized bikes. Included, and it says kayak or by other means or equipment. So other means or equipment seems to make it
so you have a sense of where Molly and I, what do you think, what would be your advice for language? Because I'm having a hard time coming.
Sure. So what I'm thinking is you want to include the kayaks, you want to include the motorized bicycle. You may want to be prohibiting other motorized vehicles or apparatuses.
So after mopeds, other motorized vehicles
And
and
apparatuses.
apparatus.
Including but not limited to skateboards or
Yeah.
scooters.
So you take that, the last.
Great. Comfortable? Everybody comfortable?
So
Very helpful.
do we need to make a motion to add that?
After we close the public.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Right. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing? All in favor, aye. So that change in language would be what?
So you would be adding. Wasn't bicycle or
But not mopeds, comma,
motorized cycle bikes or other. We want to be prohibiting that.
by Jamie.
Keeping the bicycles. But we want to be prohibiting electronic.
Or I just say nothing.
Yes.
Not moped, and then put this, put like that.
Yes.
Is it, if this was, if the tours were licensed, would you have better control? Like, Zine has a license to do the tour? Because otherwise, by this, it sounds like someone could come out with a Segway or whatever it might be from that end of it.
That's what we're
That's what we're trying to, that's what we're trying to,
Or.
So, but if it were, if the tour license, if it was a license that was issued, would there be better? It's just a. thought,
I don't,
maybe.
so it's interesting you should ask that because I ended up working on this with Karen, our land use lawyer, and I originally thought it was going to be a license. And she said, it is going to be, easier and cleaner to do as a zoning ordinance. But I'm not unwilling to do a tour business license as well, you know, I think it's, if it's to the extent that it's belt and suspenders, I think, you know, I mean, yeah.
I think it would be a question for James. I believe it had to do with the fact that we didn't have the authorization, the
issue a
state
license, that's what-
authorization
that's what it
to
was.
issue those
Thank you.
licenses.
You're my hero.
Yes. True. So I think what the answer is under tour business, under that definition, where you say, but not mopeds or other electronic motorized vehicles or apparatuses, including and not limited to skateboards or scooters. So taking and just duplicating that. Yes.
Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. I say it. Any other changes?
Yeah, so in section G, I'd like to see something about town roads, state roads, private roads, all out, to specify that. Because when the planning board talked about, it, they were talking about the start and finish, not the actual tour itself.
But should we put something in there too that, unless there's permission of a property owner? I'm just thinking back, like when we had the walking. Right. Right. No, I'm just, no, we're not going near David's, but I'm just thinking back to when we had the walking festival out here and my friend and I led a group and we got permission from a couple of people to cross their land. And it was great, but you would have to have permission.
The operator. Okay, do you have language? Go ahead. Hold on, Marion wanted to say.
I just hesitate on something like prohibiting a particular business from doing something on roads where we allow all other businesses to use these roads.
So this would apply to all tours. So who would be doing it?
No, I'm talking about businesses in general.
He's talking about private.
Okay, private roads are one thing. I thought. I
That's
thought-
the-
Oh, I thought you.
Yeah, he's.
Oh, I thought you were talking
just
about.
talking private.
Okay, I thought you were
And then
talking
Ollie
about.
raised, we wanted to add with the permission, but then he's, right, you'd be trespassing, so technically you need. So, if we want to do it right.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so you don't need to actually put that. No, that's a good point, Justin.
Private roads and driveways would be prohibited.
What would a private right of way be? Give me an example.
Oh, wait, we use the microphone.
You're invited.
Oh,
You make that whole.
You're invited. Zena Clark, our invited speaker for this
Thank
evening.
like a public right of way, like
Dunn's Cartway? Or, well, I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, I know there are places where bikes are just prohibited, period, like Rodman's Hollow, which I wouldn't ask about, but I'm just trying to get an understanding for what you're excluding.
What's Dunn's Cartway? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, between Gracie's and Dory's, and it's
It's a road you'd only want to take a bicycle down.
yeah. And it's beautiful, and it's something, it could be a possibility if people are capable, but I don't know what you're saying.
Well, again, I go back to private that. If all those residents are going to have people now riding by their house, again, I trust Zena, she's going to run it right. And she's not going to have people dumping off the bicycles and, sitting in the grass and all of that. But if we keep it to public roads or town roads, you're eliminating a lot of that concern that residents are going to raise.
So all activities should take place on public and town roads, public state town roads. Where you can have it instead of where.
And then a public right of way isn't a gray area because it's a public right of way, right? So it's public.
I mean,
But
there's
it-
some people who have I know where these are in the law. The Sheffield Cemetery and the Dodge Cemetery, both of those, there are people who live along those would have you think they were private if you didn't know better.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's, probably I'm gonna go there. Go there.
Where do these trips?
Go to the microphone, please, Pat.
Where do these trips begin? Is there a location for this business? Your house is the location for the business. So that's where they would be
It's where they.
starting all the trips from. They're on Lois Lane. Okay. Okay, so when I mentioned creep in our zone, or in the zone, it's a third of a mile wide. There's a number of businesses, primarily hotels, and 20 residences. It's primarily residential. But so that would be an acceptable, because if you look at the list of businesses up until now, and that ordinance has been modified through the years, it allowed for a daycare and it allowed for other things. So I understand they have to change the language, and that's probably not your oversight of including a small tour business also to be operated in the residential C mixed area. Is that?
Right. Right. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's,
I don't.
yeah.
I think the planning board already addressed this, and the wording for the zone that Lois is in is already appropriate for what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I talked to actually Jen Brady about it as well, and she felt the same.
Okay, I thought there had to be a modification
No, I don't think it has to be modified.
because it's already a.
It's
business.
already, yeah.
Right, so I spoke to Jen Brady today and the land use officer, and she did say that this was in compliance with the zone.
So the reason I'm concerned is Jen Brady also said something was in compliance and then it was locked out. It couldn't be discussed further and it couldn't be appealed. So the family who raised the concern had to sue the town, which they weren't going to do. So I'm fearful. So and we would probably need Karen here Jen made a call on a situation. I didn't agree with it. She left the thing that was addressed. She addressed 6 of the items that the family didn't even raise the concern. The one thing she raised was not addressed. As such, she went ahead and gave a recommendation. Karen said that family was out of luck. She had already made her decision and it locked out any further discussion on it. So I am concerned that we're opening a can of worms here with, I'm not questioning Jen Brady, but it created this very weird, remember, we went into executive session on it and I raised the concern and Karen said they're out of luck, they'd have to sue. So
I mean, I want to say that I think that I trust that the land use officer understands land use and that if there's a problem, there's a procedure for this.
that's what Pat was raising, was
Right.
isn't the understanding that there has to be a modification to the language associated with that to allow the business. I understand it's already operating, I think Pat, and I don't know it well enough, so
Right,
I'm
but-
just asking the question.
So between our last meeting and this meeting, this went to the planning board, right?
Yes.
So in the planning board gave it a unanimous approval.
Yes.
So I don't, I'm just saying, I'm not going to disagree with the land use officer and the planning board, but that's me.
And that's the only thing I came up here to say. I just wanted to point out that it wasn't just Jen Brady's opinion. It was the unanimous vote of the planning board and their interpretation of the language that's already there.
Their interpretation was specifically around the use of the start and the finish, not the use of the rest of the island, which is
True.
non-resident.
True.
The resident.
I mean, they're public, yeah, they're public roads.
Part of its review, the planning board considered what zoning districts this use would be permitted in and recommends that tour businesses be allowed in only the following zoning districts: residential C mixed, mixed, Old Harbor commercial, New Harbor commercial, and service commercial.
Yeah, so that's my point, is it didn't take
What is
into
your
it.
point? What do you-
It's,
do you want
Keith, I
language?
know,
I'm
no,
struggling
no,
to
so
understand, like,
my
how do we
point
operate
is
this?
they were talking, and I know you're trying to push this through, and I know you're supportive of Xena, so I get it. So, yeah,
We had 5 minutes about Jen Brady,
okay.
and I still haven't
Okay.
heard language from you. What language do you
So
want?
my concern is that is addressing the use of the start and finish of the business. It doesn't address the rest of the island. So I would like the language to specify what can be done in those other, while the tour is being conducted,
In those other what?
those other zones. So, and back to state roads, town roads.
In this section, it's just discussing,
That's a commercial district already. So, Martha. Old Harbor isn't a commercial district?
But the start and finish is in New Harbor.
I mean, I think we can allow kayaks on rights of way. What do you think? How far do you think they'll get?
What's that?
How far do you think a kayak will get on a right of way?
Yeah.
So you want.
So Keith, I know you're frustrated with me, but we're doing the short-term rental for the betterment of the whole island. I'm trying to do it so we're clear on the tour business.
Not have a philosophical
Okay.
struggle here. I'm
Okay.
trying to get to.
But you were clearly frustrated with me. So, and I've said it twice. Clarify the language around the use of state and local roads.
Do you have a language to suggest?
And are you suggesting doing this under section G?
Yeah, that is what I thought.
So it would be like number 7?
Yeah, or
Okay.
6,
6.
yeah.
So you'd put a semicolon after tour, then 6.
And Martha, it can specifically start with, for tours using bicycles, we can use, it should be specified to be on state and town roads. There it is.
Great.
Public roads. State, town and public roads, right, is what we talked about? Is that,
Yep.
that's correct, right?
Yes.
So, yes, can you give me some specific language?
So it would be number 7 under,
Six.
under G. No, 6 is helmets are mandatory.
Oh, I must have an old version.
Or do I have the wrong version?
The one I have a clerk base ends at 5.
Yeah, me too.
I think, right, is James?
He wasn't on it, I don't think.
You sent me a text that said your mic was. Yeah.
Oh, oops.
Did we lose some?
I'm here.
No,
How are you, how you doing?
So maybe I had the wrong version on.
Yeah. So James, do you think you should comment on the wording? Just so we don't have to come back to it?
I think it probably should be state and town roads as well as public right of ways.
And it would. So what? Yeah, no, I know that. I'm trying to address the fact that, so it appears that what's on clerk base is missing 6.
All right. Yeah, I think you should add the helmet language too.
Because the helmet language is included in the advertised version of this ordinance.
Right, I think that should be involved. That
And
should be-
all I can do is apologize that an older version is snuck on to clerk base. And
So we'll
I'm
put 6.
sorry about that.
The helmet language.
But the correct
and
version was
7,
advertised.
James,
the
you
correct
said,
version was advertised.
Okay.
James, you said, town and state roads and public rights of way. Does that
Yes.
fit? All of those?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make that motion. Can someone second it?
Second?
All those in favor indicate by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any other comments? Changes? Thoughts? Neil, does that work? That works for you?
All good?
Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve this ordinance as amended, please? Second?
Second?
Second, I'm
All
sorry.
those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. All right. Local question on the November general election to authorize spending for the purchase of portable saltwater pump for the fire department and safety upgrades at police dispatch. What do we have to do here, Millie? Oh,
Yeah, so if you wanted to add some language to the November ballot, you would need to develop that language. It needs to be obviously approved by legal counsel, and it needs to be submitted to the Secretary of State's office by August 7th. So you'll have tonight, and then you're going to have a second or final approval on August 5th. You do have a meeting on August 5th. So if.
Okay.
okay. So what do we need to do? Say that we want to develop this language?
I think you want to I'd start making a motion, including what you want to include in that question, what you're asking for.
And that would have to include an exact number? Okay, so we would need the assistance of the fire department to come up with the exact number prior to August 5th. Okay.
In terms of what we have to do tonight, this is just.
I think what you want to do tonight is to make a motion, at least with your intention of what you want to include on the ballot. You can obviously hold off on that final figure for adoption and direct the attorney to whether it be work with Amy, bond counsel. Okay, so they would be directing.
So someone would make a motion to direct the town manager to make ready for us for our August 5th meeting, anything that we need to put those 2 questions. Would it be in one question? Probably 2 questions. Those 2 questions on the November ballot.
Or you could do one. I suggest.
Two.
I mean, you can make that.
Wait, so 2 questions being,
The renovation.
For the, portable mobile pumper and a vote for the renovation of the,
Please dispatch.
thank you, police dispatch. That's my understanding. which is
Okay,
on the agenda.
okay.
And would this be a package? Would this also include the truck to pull this trailer mounted pump, or has the chief talked about a truck mount? Do we know?
We can ask the chief to provide us with that information if that's what we need for this.
And I'm sort of where Tristan is, like, we had a lot of conversations about this during the budget process and the numbers weren't quite developed. So I think that that's what we need to make sure they all know that, like, these numbers have to be developed or
So-
they can't.
I think this item is to say to Marianne and whomever, Amy, bond counsel, Chris Hobie, Paul Dean, get it ready for us and have all the details for our August 5th meeting.
Is that your motion? Is that what we're looking for?
To have it, give them the deadline.
I think it's the fifth.
We,
It's August 5th.
yeah, we have to have it August 5th because we had to have it voted on and into the hands of the Secretary of State by August 7th. So we haven't posed deadline of August.
And I'm not unwilling if you want to, Tristan and Molly and everybody, if you want to do a work session on this with those guys so we can actually
That might
have
be a good
a
idea.
conversation. Because,
When's the August?
what's that?
Give them
a
couple of extra days.
So you think like, have it ready by August 1st?
Well, we were just looking at the dates for the work session in August.
It's the 7th.
Oh, okay.
But you do have a scheduled meeting on the 23rd and on the 30th
Right.
right now. Or the 30th is the meeting with the school committee.
Yes.
So you could add.
So we have,
you
we
add to
could
it.
add,
There we go.
that. Okay.
Why don't we do that,
So,
the 30th?
okay. So, but the motion is still to direct the town manager to, undertake the preparation of all of the documents that would be necessary to put this on a referendum in November. Is that encompassing enough for you guys? Or specific enough? I have a second to that. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Unsounded. Discuss and act on additions to the fee schedule. Short-term rental license, 250, mobile food establishment, 75, and then Jen sent us the Unified Development Review, which was what,
300 plus
300
application.
plus
fees
the other fees that are already in the,
that are already established.
okay. Any discussion of those?
So the short-term rental was obviously a hot topic. I think 250 needs seem reasonable, but if we wanted to adjust that down or come up with a structure based on bedrooms or something, I'm open to it, but
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm open to that too. My view on the short-term rental ordinance generally is that it's largely foundational, and it'll likely live. And if 250 isn't the right number, for example, it's a more significant administrative burden, or it goes online and it's less challenging. I think change it down the road.
But I think I see what you're saying though, like if we were to switch it to $50 a bedroom, right? That it becomes a sliding scale that's more palatable for somebody, like, we did get letters from some people who have teeny tiny houses, right? So if you have a teeny tiny house, you're not charging the same amount of money. I mean, I have one person in mind who, like, and I totally get what she was saying to us, right? Because it's minuscule, right? So if you can't charge $10,000 a week for your house, for obvious reasons, that's a lot of money. So maybe it would make sense to have it be a per bedroom fee.
So on item A, I would make a suggestion of 175 for the first year.
Just across the board.
I guess it comes back to just your team's, the costs associated with it, getting the database up and everything implemented, you know, and how many end up registering, you know, and what Amy built into the finances to be able to cover it. So I know she used the 250 to model stuff, but the only reason I'm fearful is we don't know what we don't know, maybe from a expense perspective. So
But we also don't know how many rental houses there are, how many bedrooms are in each rental house. We don't know any of that. So
maybe Keith's approach is the best.
Just think bedrooms will be a nightmare.
Yeah.
okay.
Amy modeled it at 250. I think the potential staffing plan is based upon the 250. We have to revisit it. Let's revisit it, but I'm comfortable with the 250.
Millie, do we have any exception process on any of the licenses that allow, and I don't want to go down this, but
Hardship type thing.
hardship. So I go back to the person who has 1 bedroom cottage and 250, that becomes a lot different than someone who has 4 bedrooms, right? So is there anything we do a hardship review on stuff? No. And I don't like those because then it gets a little arbitrary and, you know, but I'm gonna go middle of the road. He said 175. He said keep it at 250. Why don't we go 200? Did I hear 200? Going once, going once.
Go ahead, Bill.
I just have one question. Did Amy model that when there was an inspection aspect to it, or was that the 250 which came up?
I don't think she got that there was that level of detail, but I think we said it'll probably be 250. Will you model this? And I think you or Jen.
And actually, I don't think there was any point at which there was an inspection mandatory. It was subject to inspection, always.
Cindy?
Meaning
Oh, sorry.
could be
Sorry.
inspected.
Keith, can I weigh in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want a couple of things to clarify. I didn't do the modeling. I actually believe that came out of Jen and land use. And we also did not include either the revenue or the expense in the budget because the ordinance hadn't been passed.
I remember. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Amy.
All right. Cindy.
Going back to what Cindy said earlier.
Yeah, sorry, Cindy.
Just a big picture comment back to what David said earlier. It is a tax deductible expense for people.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Right. So where are we? What's the motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. 200. Mobile food establishment, $75.
Make the motion for $75 for the mobile food establishment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate
Aye.
by saying aye.
Aye.
Unified Development Review Application 300.
I make a motion for a unified development review application.
300 plus the application fees, yeah.
300 plus the application fee.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item 11, review of financial reports.
There won't be any for the month of June.
Okay, fine. Amy, resolutions.
Yes, so you do have 3 resolutions in front of you. The first is for Sewer, which is a loan that we're closing in August. The authorization was from May of 2022. The next is, sorry, did I say $2,000? $2 million. The next is for $1 million, which was authorized this year at financial town meeting for roads and bridges. We are preparing to issue a general obligation bond that includes that amount. And then the third is a little bit unique. It's the resolution for 10.4 million, which is the amount authorized for the school project. We are preparing to issue a band for the school project, a bond anticipation note. And we are expecting at this point to issue a $4 million band. So we won't be using that full authority, but to support the projects that are being started right now, we're looking at about $4 million.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions, comments? Okay, the first resolution is approving the issuance of bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $2 million for financing capital improvements to the sewer system of the town. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item B, resolution of the town of New Shoreham approving the issuance of bonds and or notes in an amount not to exceed $1 million to finance the repair, replacement and or improvement of town roads and bridges. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Finally, a resolution of the town of New Shoreham approving the issuance of bonds and or notes in an amount not to exceed 10.4 million to finance the additions, renovations, improvements, alterations, and repairs for schools and school facilities in the town.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So note, not for us, you heard Amy clearly. This is for the likelihood that we end up issuing for that entire project is unclear at this point, but there are things in that authorization that need to get done, i.e. the gym. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Discuss and act on the approval of the employment contract for Allison Carley, Director of Human Services. Thank you for sending this to us earlier.
So this is just a standard employment contract that I had started with when I started my tenure here, and department heads did not have contracts. So this is another standard contract for a department head, similar to what we've had for the finance director, the DPW director, the town clerk. So I'm looking for approval of this contract. And as you all know, Carly started on Monday and has hit the ground running.
Now, just from a logistical standpoint, does it vary because since they're all in the union right now versus if and when they're not in the union? Will the employment contract does it vary?
So the only individual department contracts we have are for those non-union employees.
Okay, so she's already not in
Correct.
that role. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. I forgot that.
Would someone like to
I'll
make
make the motion for Allison Carley's contract.
second? Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mary Ann.
So on the town manager's report, I'll be relatively quickly here this evening. A couple of things that I would like to point out to the council is, there is some discussion about the 4th of July and how well that went. And I did provide you with an email after the 4th of July. Also, the highway crew, which was interested in removed 1,300 pounds of trash off the beach on July 4th. And also we were fortunate to have some volunteers that also helped us with that process. Also, I think you all may know this already, but Mike Convery has accepted the position as superintendent for school. Mike did work for the schools. He was superintendent about 3 years ago. So he has now joined the school staff. He started July 1st. Also, As you may remember or may not, we did submit a grant via RIPTA with a bunch of other communities regarding safe town roads. That grant was awarded. So the next process of the grant is to come up with a safety plan for individual municipalities, which is now starting. We've been assigned a individual who's working with us. There's a couple of different areas where folks can do a survey. So we're encouraging all folks to do a survey. They will be doing an engagement campaign kickoff with this survey. They'll be visiting the island on the 26th and again on September 9th, and do a pop-up at both the post office, grocery store, and also from the chamber, just to get feedback from all individuals. There will be, just so you know, a stakeholders discussion with the town council and the planning board at a further date. And finally, I did send a letter to the first warding. I am resigning as your town manager effective September 30th. It's been a pleasure, but I'll be here for the next about 90 days. So I just want to announce that publicly. The council did receive that information.
Comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a comment. I think that Marianne has done a tremendous amount of work in the time that she has been here that people are going to begin to realize when she's gone. People forget she came in during COVID when we weren't even allowed to meet in rooms, and we've come a long way to, well, we had a pretty good day today with fire, building funding and water funding, and Senator Reed over here. And I have a few other things I thought I would say, but it's like short notice. I didn't have any time put it together. And I want to thank you very much for your service to this town.
And Martha's touched on the work, but I wanted to touch on a personal note. I have grown very fond of you and Chris, and appreciate your friendship and support in addition to all the work you've done, and very much look forward to staying in touch, and wish you and Chris the best.
I do want to thank you, Mary Ann, for the projects that you worked on and saw through to the end. It was a pleasure working with you just this short amount of time. Thank you.
All right.
Keith, do you mind if I say something?
I would not mind at all.
I just want to say, I think Marianne's been a great asset to the town and to us as solicitors. Frankly, without her, I don't think Nick and I would be involved. We're very happy to be involved in the town. It's a great place to work, and really, hopefully happy for Marianne and wish her the best. Obviously, we'll be talking to her a lot in the next few months, but she's been a great asset again to us and to the town, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you for saying that, James. Thank you. Item 15, Board, Commission, and Committees acknowledge resignation of Judith Saranac from the Zoning Board. I do feel compelled because I served with Judith for several years on zoning. She has been an active and engaged contributor for a long time on that board. And I will say, just sort of anecdotally, never came, regardless of where we might be on particular applications, never came to a meeting unprepared, never came to a meeting not having read the file, knowing the maps, etc. And I just, she mentored me when I couldn't spell zoning, and just have always very much appreciated the effort that she's put in for the town. So I wish her well, of course. We have a couple of appointments. We have Michael Convery, who's the new school superintendent, as an ex officio member of the school building committee. And we have Robert Kloster filling Judith's unexpired term on the zoning board. Can we do those as one motion? Can I have a motion for those two? With thanks to Rob for being willing to serve again on zoning. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Vacancies. Motor vehicles for hire for someone without a license. Sewer District Commission, we have 2 alternate positions, and Water. Conservation Commission, 2 positions. One that expires at the end of this year, one that expires at the end of 2026. And 1 zoning board. I would just point out on the Conservation Commission, there's a lot there. That's a pretty meaty role. I've seen a couple of things come across my desk in the last week, literally, that require a competent and engaged Conservation Commission. So please, if you're thinking about this stuff at 10:14 on a Wednesday night, please.
Can I throw something in on that?
Yes, please.
Conservation Commission has always been really hard group to get real purchase. It's a statutory group. It's not a it has a lot of power by the laws of the state of Rhode Island. We have always been, I feel it's always been underutilized out here. And it's a real shame because we pride ourselves on conservation. We talk about conservation, but the one place where we really have a hammer looking, we don't utilize it. And it's a shame. And I hope there are people who are interested. I would love to see some younger people who have some knowledge of some things. We can't start knowing nothing, but it's hey, you got to start somewhere. If you're interested, get in touch.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn? Oh, yeah. Yeah. We didn't have, this is one of the other open meetings thing. I'm not supposed to. Remember, there used to be an agenda item that was sort of like first warden's report. And we can't do that. No, crazy, right? Right now? Yeah. But given that I'm prohibited from saying it, I should say that Senator Reed, as always, was so gracious and is, for lack of a better description, he is just such a good guy. He is a salt of the earth guy, was very, very committed to helping the town with a range of public safety and other expenses, and always open to talking about those. So he spent an entire day here and really, someone said this at, that doesn't happen anywhere else in America. I don't think, where a sitting senator with his kind of seniority comes and spends 6 hours on Block Island. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Indulge public comment.
Yes, of course.
I was just taken a little bit by surprise. I just wanted to say, as somebody who's not in government and but does a lot of stuff in the town, that I've had many interactions with Mary Ann in the town manager's office on conservation things and many things. And it's really been a great working relationship. She's always been accommodating. and accepting in the office, and I'm sorry to see that you're going to resign.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Did we adjourn? Yeah. I think.
Night, everybody.
Hi, Dad.